Ja, jetzt kennt ihr das Studio. Jetzt wird es Zeit, die Sportler vorzustellen. Wir haben 10 Athleten, die hier an den Start gehen. Gibt es da spezielle Favoriten aus deiner Sicht?
Ja, ich habe 3 Favoriten. Denke schon, dass wir den Robert, den Danny und den Lars Seibert würde ich auch noch so mit reinnehmen in den Favoritenkreis, einen engen Favoritenkreis. Die 3, glaube ich, werden es unter sich ausmachen, aber je nachdem, wenn ein anderer ziemlich stark ist, dann glaube ich schon, dass auch ein anderer mit reinspringen kann.
Das ist ja das Schöne bei Timbersports, da kann ja immer was passieren und es wird, hoffe ich, zumindest bis zum Schluss spannend bleiben. Das haben wir auch die letzten Jahre gezeigt. Aber wenn ich hier mal schaue auf den Amarok Cup, das war ja so die Qualifikation für die deutsche Meisterschaft, dann werden wir ganz einfach, glaube ich, diese Reihenfolge auch jetzt mal heranziehen, um die Athleten vorzustellen.
Genau.
Das heißt, wir haben den Ralf Dengler mit dabei. 10. Platz beim Amarok Cup. Ist das ein Mann, also wir sehen es da, 1,78 groß, 80 Kilo schwer, 55 Jahre jung. Der ist auch schon ein bisschen dabei, ne?
Ja, Ralf ist einer der Pioniere bei uns im Timbersport, hat 2001 auch wirklich das erste Trainingscamp mitbelegt und dann seitdem fast alle Wettkämpfe bestritten. Ich glaube, er hat dieses Jahr sogar 20-jähriges Jubiläum gehabt, also die 20. Saison im Prinzip. Wo er dabei ist, ist schon eine Riesenleistung und auch in dem Alter noch so eine Leistung abzurufen, dann eben auch sich für die DM nochmal zu qualifizieren, finde ich schon eine starke Leistung und ich hoffe, dass er einen guten Tag erwischt und gute Leistung zeigen kann. Zumindest das Beste, was er aus sich rausholen kann.
Ja, cooler Typ und ich bin mir ganz sicher, der wird nochmal alles geben. Matthias Thoma hat den 9. Platz geholt und hat sich somit auch qualifiziert.
Ja, Matthias ist auch schon lange dabei. 2003 haben wir uns kennengelernt. Als ich eingestiegen bin in den Timbersport Series, war er auch schon dabei. Ich glaube, er hat 2002 angefangen, hatte jetzt mal 1-2 Jahre ausgesetzt, wo er nicht am Start war und ist jetzt wieder dieses Jahr mit reingestiegen, hat sich gleich für Anhieb qualifiziert und bin gespannt, was er abrufen kann.
Ja, und das bringt uns zu Nils Müller.
Ja, Nils ist auch ein Kandidat für vornherein in bestimmten Disziplinen, gerade im anderen ist er sehr stark. Muss schauen, er ist beruflich sehr eingespannt gewesen, weil er hat sich selbstständig gemacht, unheimlich viel Arbeit und muss gucken, wie die Vorbereitung für ihn gelaufen ist. Aber ich denke, er hat schon eine Chance, in die Top 5 zu kommen.
Dann gibt es natürlich noch den Christoph Lang. Das ist der nächste Mann auf unserer Liste.
Ja, Christoph ist jetzt neu dazugekommen dieses Jahr, ist jetzt in die Pro-Serie eingestiegen, aber er ist Rookie und hat dieses Jahr seine Freigaben alle bekommen, sprich im Springboard, auch in der Hotsaw. Hat sehr gute Leistung auch im Training gebracht, er hat Potenzial, auch nach vorne zu kommen und er ist einer auch für die Zukunft, der ein Kandidat ist auch für den DM-Titel, glaube ich.
Ja, und er hat auch einen ordentlichen Bizeps, ist mir aufgefallen.
Er kommt aus der gleichen Branche wie ich.
Ja, das ist nicht zu übersehen. Ja,
und ich denke schon, also er hat sich gut gemacht. Ich hoffe, er wird einen guten Tag erwischt, ist nicht zu nervös, ist der erste Wettkampf für ihn jetzt und ist jetzt, denke ich mal, für ihn nicht ganz so einfach, auch jetzt mit Robert und Danny zu bestehen. Man kennt sich eben auch und sind ja schon irgendwo Idole auch für ihn, das macht viel Druck. Vielleicht auch ein bisschen, wenn er ganz entspannt bleibt, ich habe es ihm gerade in der Kabine gesagt, bleib locker, ruf dein Zeug, was du machen kannst. Hier stehst du nicht unter Druck in dem Sinne jetzt, dass du was leisten musst, dass jemand was von dir erwartet, sondern einfach nur das bringen, was du kannst und dann wird man sehen, was am Ende des Tages rumkommt.
Ja, man darf gespannt bleiben. Steffen Graf hat sich den 6. Platz geholt beim Amarok Cup.
Ja, Steffen ist auch schon lange dabei jetzt mittlerweile, ist auch schon beständiges Nationalteam-Mitglied und bringt immer solide Leistungen, aber ich glaube nicht, dass er die Top 5 knacken wird.
Das bringt uns zu Stefan Stark, der hat die Top 5 geknackt beim Amarok Cup. Was traust du ihm hier bei der deutschen Meisterschaft zu?
Ja, Stefan und ich, wir kennen uns auch schon sehr lange. Wir haben gemeinsam angefangen. Ich glaube, er war sogar ein bisschen eher noch dabei als ich und hat seitdem beständig Leistung gebracht, ist auch einer der Älteren, der Älteste, glaube ich, sogar am Start hier. Und ich habe mich sehr gefreut für ihn, dass er jetzt am Amarok Cup noch wirklich den 5. Platz belegen konnte, also wirklich die Jungen auch nochmal in den Hintern getreten hat. Und somit haben die aber auch ein bisschen Druck zu sagen, ey, wir müssen mal ein bisschen Gas geben hier. Da war jetzt ein Älterer, der schon so lange dabei ist und hat uns geschlagen. Wir müssen noch ein bisschen Gas geben, dass es wieder nach vorne geht. Und ich wünsche Stefan alles Gute, dass er nochmal so einen guten Wettkampf hinlegt, weil er hat es verdient, weil es ein feiner Fundskerl ist, ein feiner Mensch auch. Und ich sehe ihn gerne in der Serie.
Und da sieht man auch, dass nicht nur Kraft, sondern auch Taktik und Routine nicht unwichtig sind.
Ja, bei ihm ist es ja die Kraft, weil er stark heißt.
Ja, das bringt uns zum Viertplatzierten vom Amarok Cup, der Stefan Odwarka. Wie würdest du den einschätzen? Kann der vielleicht die Top 3 diesmal knappen?
Ja, Stefan ist schon eigentlich talentiert. Er hat einen guten Bewegungsablauf, sage ich mal, in den ganzen Disziplinen. Weil er auch, er ist ehemaliger Kampfsportler, ist also sehr beweglich, was für unseren Sport sehr von Vorteil ist und so. Und wenn er es wirklich optimal umsetzen könnte, dann glaube ich schon, dass er auch die Top 5 knacken kann. Auch die Top 4.
Oder vielleicht sogar die Top 3.
Ja, wenn alles gut läuft.
Dann schauen wir mal die Top 3 an. Da haben wir einen eigenen Clip vorbereitet für die 3 Favoriten. Du hast das eingangs schon erwähnt. Und die werden sich heute, glaube ich, einen richtig heißen Kampf liefern.
Lars Seibert and Danny Marr from the 2019 German Championships. Take a look back at that.
Es gibt jetzt keinen Ausweg mehr. Ich muss einfach bereit sein. Es wäre natürlich klasse, wenn ich den deutschen Titel wieder zurückholen könnte.
Also ich glaube, mit dem ist immer zu rechnen, oder? Mit dem Robert Ebner.
Ja, Robert ist sehr fokussiert. Er ist wirklich einer der Sportler, die sich am besten noch vorbereiten, glaube ich persönlich, weil er sehr ehrgeizig ist. Ist dieses Jahr allerdings auch Familienvater geworden. Das gibt ihm vielleicht auch nochmal ein bisschen Schub. Hat einen kleinen Jungen und ist jetzt auch glücklich liiert, glaube ich. Also das private Umfeld passt auch. Man ist dann ausgeglichener vielleicht. Ein bisschen mehr Harmonie auch im Training und den ganzen Abläufen und so. Und ich glaube schon, dass er auf alle Fälle eine Chance hat zu gewinnen. Keine Frage. Er ist immer ein Titelfavorit gewesen, auch in der Vergangenheit. Und wenn alles zusammenpasst, ist es schon schwer, ihn rüber zu schlagen.
Wenn die Harmonie mit der Hotzo funktioniert, dann ist er ein Titelkandidat, oder?
Wir werden sehen. Hotzo ist immer so ein Knackpunkt, wissen wir alle. Dass in Hotzo entscheidet sich eben.
All right, for my position up here, I'm looking at our stage right in front of us. It does appear that everything seems to be more or less prepared. Before we get going, we will meet our judges. There are 3 judges that are here today that play a very important role in how everything flows today.
Da haben wir auch einen Tipp vorbereitet.
And they will be keeping a close eye on everything. We do have 2 further athletes to take a quick look at here. Lars Seibert's number 2 in the German Championship last year, 2019. And yeah, looking forward to seeing him maybe defend or take over the top spot again or this year. We'll see if he can manage it. But as we heard, Robert Ebner is definitely motivated. Robert Ebner just became a papa, so he's got a little boy at home. So that is definitely going to be motivation for him to do well here at this event. But he's going to have to get through Lars Seibert, who bested him 1 place
ja, Silber
last
glänzt
year.
halt nicht ganz so schön wie Gold. Ich bin mir sicher, der will ganz nach oben, oder?
Ja, Lars ist schon sehr ehrgeizig. Letztes Jahr mit dem Silber hat er einen super Erfolg gehabt, glaube ich persönlich, und hat sich kontinuierlich auch für Saison gesteigert und ist für mich, also vom Potenzial her, was er körperlich auch reinbringen kann, eigentlich derjenige, der in der Zukunft unschlagbar sein könnte, wenn er es vom Training her so forcieren würde, sage ich mal, dass er wirklich auch all in gehen würde und würde sagen, ich hau jetzt alles rein. Aber er ist auch beruflich sehr eingespannt und muss das auch immer alles in Harmonie bringen mit der Familie und so. Das ist dann schon ein bisschen schwieriger, aber ich denke, dass auf alle Fälle Top 3 möglich ist. Und wenn es ganz gut läuft, wie gesagt, das ist ein Bulle.
Da braucht es den richtigen Coach, ne?
Er hat mich in einen Singleback geschlagen und ist wirklich ein ganz starker Sportler. Technisch braucht er noch ein bisschen, glaube ich. Da kann er hier noch was draufsetzen. Aber wenn alles zusammenpasst bei ihm und Springboard gut läuft, das ist ein bisschen mehr so Knackpunkt bei ihm, dann glaube ich schon, dass er auch vorne mitreden kann. Also wichtig ist, dass er auch ein bisschen Druck nach vorne bringt, dass die anderen merken, er ist dran.
Er ist da, ne?
Genau.
Und damit fehlt uns nur mehr einer, und das ist der Titelverteidiger. Man könnte auch sagen, Mr. Consistency.
Reigning German champion, that is Danny Marr. Danny Marr won it last year. That gave him the opportunity to compete in the single or the individual world championships of the STIHL Timbersports, where he earned 9th place. And he'll be looking to defend the title of German champion here today. He is absolutely one of the strongest timber sportsmen out there, and we'll see if he can manage. But as we heard earlier on, there are a lot of top talented timber sportsmen here. And Danny Marr is going to have a lot of people staring at the target on his back to try and take over that title from him today.
Vom Jäger zum Gejagten. 1,87 groß, 103 Kilo schwer. Ein junger Athlet. Also wenn ich mir die Vergleichszahlen anschaue, vom Alter her hat er noch ein bisschen.
Ja, Danny wird jetzt 32 im Dezember. Ist aber auch schon fast jetzt, glaube 8 Jahre oder 9 Jahre in der Serie tätig. Also er hat schon beständig Wettkämpfe bestritten. Ich denke, dass er jetzt auch gereift ist als Sportler, dass er wirklich auch damit umgehen kann, jetzt auch mit so einem Sieg. Und ich denke schon, dass er die Chance hat, einen Titel zu verteidigen. Und für mich, das habe ich ihm auch letztens noch gesagt, ist es eigentlich als Sportler entscheidender, ob ich einen Titel verteidigen kann oder ob ich nur einmal gewinne. Weil wenn ich gewinnen will, dann hast du ein Ziel vor Augen und du gehst dem immer nach. Aber wenn du nach oben stehst auf einmal, dann geht die Spannung vielleicht ein bisschen runter. Und das ist wichtig, dass wir dazu finden, dass du die Spannung hochhältst, um den Titel zu verteidigen. Weil das ist dann der zweite Sieg, ist für mich immer noch der wichtigere Sieg. weil du es dann bestätigt hast und keiner sagen kann, es war Glück.
Ja, dann bist du kein One-Hit-Wonder
Genau,
und das
richtig.
wird genau das sein, was Danny Maher heute zeigen will. Aber wir werfen einen Blick ins Studio, denn es sollte jetzt so sein, dass unsere
Alright, so
Judges
now we're going to get to meet our judges, and as I was saying earlier on, these are three very important individuals for this particular event. We have Bart Janssen, Jörg Kurzenberger, and Schul Janssen, and here comes Bart Janssen right now. You will be out there on stage with our athletes as well to make sure that everything is good to go. We will have 2 stage judges, and there you see Dr. Jörg Kurzenberger coming out now with the trophy for the German Championship. He is our head judge today, so he will be the man with the final call on everything. And these 2 gentlemen will be working very closely together. And then in competition control, there you see Schul Janssen, and he will be in charge of competition control, a very important aspect of this because they have cameras all over the stage area here to make sure that everything is checked to the millimeter and literally milliseconds to make sure that our competition stays fair and impartial. And our 2 stage judges will also be maintaining the fairness on stage here with head judge Jörg Kurzenberger.
Und Jörg Kurzenberger sehen wir hier. Die werden also live dabei sein und im Videostudio Schul Janssen, der dann ins Detail gehen kann, wenn es denn notwendig sein sollte.
Es geht relativ schnell, wie gesagt, wir haben eine Zeit an der Bühne.
All right, so as I was saying also earlier, round 1 we have the underhand chop, stock saw, and then the standing block chop, and from there 8 athletes will move on to the next round, and we'll see there as it blocks through each of these points are gathered, and then the top 8 athletes will move into round 2 where we have the single buck and springboard, and then from there 6 athletes will move to the overall round 3, and that's where the battle will come down to the hot saw, and the hot saw is the tell-all discipline in this event almost always because it is the last and ultimate discipline for these athletes to really pull off a good time, and these saws at the hot saw can be so finicky. You'll see this later. We'll talk about this in more detail as we get closer to that particular discipline, but in the meantime we'll get ready on stage here for our first discipline of the day, and that is going to be the underhand chop.
Genau, ist eigentlich, wir hatten in der ersten Runde fallen 2 hinten raus. Die 2 schlechtesten fallen hinten raus, gehen 8 die nächste Runde rein. Und dann geht es im Heat for Heat, da wird es dann interessanter für den Sportler. Jetzt kann man nur 1 Punkt verlieren in der ersten Runde, aber in der nächsten Runde dann 2 oder in der nach der Runde vielleicht sogar 3 Punkte pro Platzierung. Und das ist dann sehr schon spannend dann auf alle Fälle. Hotzo hin.
Absolut.
Da, weil da muss man dann wirklich alles bringen. Also Hotzo ist
Should also mention that with each discipline, the amount of points that the athletes will receive also goes up. So in the first disciplines, or rather in the first round with underhand chop, stock saw, and single buck, there is a total of 16 points per win. I should point that out, per win. So if you have the top time in, say, the underhand chop, then you receive 16 points in round 2. It's 18 points in round 3. It goes up even further.
Mehr. Mehr. Und mehr. Viel mehr. Weniger. Aber immer noch genauso viel. Genau.
Ganz, ganz wichtig, unsere Sponsoren, die haben das überhaupt erst möglich gemacht, dass wir hier eine deutsche Meisterschaft stattfinden lassen können. Und ich bin jetzt ein bisschen unlocker, denn vielleicht können wir groß werden. Du hast was mitgebracht.
Ja, das ist zum Beispiel die Axt mit der in der ersten Disziplin.
Dirk Brown with the axe in hand right now. You can see this is a special tool. This is an incredibly sharp tool. 3 kilogram heavy head on that axe that absolutely sharpened to a razor sharp point. You could theoretically shave with this axe. It's so sharp. These are not the axes that you see your granddad cutting down the trees in the backyard with. These are specifically designed as competition axes for sport.
Underhand chop.
And let's talk about the underhand chop.
In the past, the underhand chop technique was used to split logs. Standing on a horizontally anchored block, the athletes cut through a 32-centimeter log. The block has to be worked from both sides. The axes used in timber sports definitely can't be bought at your local hardware store. Made from special steel, the blade is hand-sanded with an angle of 13 to 16 degrees. It's custom built and carefully adjusted for each competition. The weight is around 3 kilos and it's about 80 centimeters long. The blade is so sharp that you could shave with it.
Und damit können wir auch schon loslegen. Hier ist die Startliste für den ersten Durchgang für Stockso.
All right,
wir
so
haben
we'll
Heat
start
Nummer
off
1
with
Christoph Lang und Matthias
Christoph
Thoma,
Lang
Heat
and
2
Stefan
Ralf
Graf
Denger und
going up
Stefan
against each other. Then
Odwarka.
Stefan
In Heat 3 sind
Odwarka
wir
and Stefan
Müller
Stark
und Robert Ebner.
will be in Heat number 2.
Dani
3
Mahr
will be
und
Ralf
Lars
Dingler, Lars
Seibert,
Seibert.
und dann
4
last
will
but
be
not least
Matthias
Heat Nummer
Thoma,
5.
Nils Müller.
Steffen Graf
And Heat number
gegen
5,
Stefan
Robert Ebner and
Stark.
Danny Mahr. Those
Das
two will be
wird
battling hard
ein
in
Hammer
that fifth
oder
heat.
eine Axt
And
in
we're going to
dem
bring
Fall.
our first
Ja,
pairing
wir hoffen,
out
dass
onto
jetzt,
the stage
die
shortly
Jungs alle
here
die Äxte gut schwingen
for
werden
the
und,
start of our
gute
Steel
Titans,
Timbersports
zeigen werden. Ich hab's heute
German
gestern gecheckt und ich
Championships
fand's gar
here
nicht so
in
schlecht.
2020 at our special situation at Studio 6 at the Bavaria Film Studios just outside of Munich, Germany. Looking forward to the action getting underway here with our first
Wir freuen
discipline,
uns auf einen
Underhand
tollen
Chop.
Wettkampf. Guido Hüsken, du bist dran.
All right, and there we see Stefan Graf in the tunnel getting ready to come out. He'll be going up against Christoph Lang. Stefan Graf, 43 years old, 181 centimeters tall, weighs in at 93 kilograms, up against the 31-year young Christoph Lang, 186 centimeters tall and 112 kilograms. Now, will height and weight play a role here? Possibly, but I think it's going to be more about the technique between these two gentlemen when it comes to the underhand chop. Technique plays an absolutely critical role. You can't just hammer away at the block. Your angles have to be just right. Your speed and your power of the head have to be just right. If you get a little bit too overzealous, you could actually get that axe stuck in the block, which is something that you want to try and avoid doing because unsticking it from the block takes power and time is, of course, a big factor here. Fastest time gets the most points. Couple of practice swings there. We see Stefan Graf on the top of his log. The whistle blows as we get ready for competition. Here we go.
Athletes, ready!
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
All right, left-hand side of your screen, Stefan Graf. Right-hand side of your screen, Christoph Lang. Christoph steps down off the block shortly there, gets right back up in. You can see big, heavy blows from both of these guys, slabbing out those blocks nicely. Christoph Lang still working on the backside, both of them stepping over, and Christoph very tentative on his move over to the other side of the block. Now starts hitting Stefan Graf with the advantage here right now, but a couple of big blows by Stefan and Christoph both. Christoph slabbing out nicely. Big one comes from Stefan Graf there. Who will come through this one first? Big heavy shots. Oh, a quick stick by Christoph Lang. Stefan Graf is getting closer, and another stuck axe by Christoph. And it looks like that block is coming loose on Christoph Lang's side, but it's going to be Stefan Graf in a time of 50.92. And unfortunately, the time keeps running for Christoph Lang. One more blow should do it. Oh, maybe two. Just keeps getting that axe stuck, but he is through in a time of 1:01.19. Now, we're going to get a chance here to compare styles when our next pair come out. In the meantime, what we saw here between these two gentlemen was a very similar style. Big, long blows, heavy shots, and looks as though we do have a flag on the play. Now here, we can see right off the start, some great big hits, and yeah, Christoph Lang stepped down off the block, but he got back up. Now, I don't see anything where that would be an issue. He didn't hit the block while he was down, so he got back up and reset himself and kept going. I'd be curious to know where the actual flag on the play was seen. On this side here, you see Stefan Graf right in front of you with some big slabs coming off of that block. And both of these guys using big, long, heavy strokes. And Christoph Lang, obviously a very powerful young man, and managed to get that axe stuck into the block a couple of times, which cost him quite a bit of energy and quite a bit of time. So that is our first heat out of the way, as we'll get ready for the next heat coming on. And that's going to be Stefan Odvarka going up against Stefan Stark. Great name, Stark. In German, it means strong. And he has been around this sport for a long time. So we will see how the 55-year-old fares up against the 36-year-old Stefan Odvarka. And we see our cleanup crew on stage right now. It's a beehive, but these guys get the job done very, very quickly. Very important to make sure that that stage gets completely cleaned of any excess wood or wood chips or dust that's lying on the ground that could cause the situation to be a little bit too slippery. And you can see in the background there the arm and the axe from Stefan Odvarka. All of that steel equipment perfectly suited for this situation as well, cleaning up and getting the stage prepared. And a great job by this crew to get everything cleaned up very quickly so we can get underway with heat number 2 in the underhand chop. All right, coming out on the stage now, Stefan Odvarka, 36 years old, as I mentioned, 188 centimeters tall, 93 kilograms, is actually an auto mechanic, and he has been participating in timber sports since 2011. His best rank so far has been 4th place at the German Championship in 2017. He has participated in the German Championships many times, but 4th place is the best he has made so far, hoping to pull off perhaps an upset today and take over the top spot. You know, he's ready for it. On the other side of the stage, we have Stefan Stark, 55 years old, 187 centimeters tall, 100 kilograms. Experience over youth or youth over experience? We'll find out in heat number 2 in the underhand chop.
Athletes, ready!
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
And we could see here, right on the left-hand side of your screen, Odvarka has a little bit of a faster head speed on that axe, moving it quickly. Meanwhile, Stefan Stark on the right-hand side, on the far side of the screen now. Great technique, not making many mistakes on the hits, and Odvarka has now moved over to the other side of his log. Advantage goes to Odvarka at the moment. Oh, but he's decided to come over now, and Stark has joined as well on the backside. Odvarka, nice clean cuts from him, very technical, and it looks like he's going to get through there first with one more blow. Steps down, but that last blow should break the log apart. That should be fair as well in a time of 38.24. And Stefan Stark still working on the backside of his block. A couple of stuck axes there. Has to loosen them up a bit. And we are breaking into the close to a minute time. Will he be able to get it under a minute 55? Or a minute? Yes, he does it in 55:54. I do believe that's an unofficial time, though. We have to make sure that I didn't speak too soon. And just a quick update, Christoph Long from the first heat was disqualified. I don't have any information as to why he was disqualified. I don't believe it was because he stepped down off of the block. But in the meantime, let's look back here at this battle between Stefan Odvarka and Stefan Stark. And in this case, Stefan Odvarka, very, very technically proficient with that axe as well. Nice clean cuts on the far side of your screen. Stefan Stark right here close to you with the number 8 on his block. Odvarka was very quickly over to the other side as we see him concentrating hard right there. And the final cut through, separating those blocks. No flag on the play, so we should see both cuts being good for both of those guys. Official time now for Stefan Odvarka is a 37.88, and for Stefan Graf, excuse me, for Stefan Stark is a 58.58. All right, so taking a look at the ranking after the first two heats, and we see Stefan Odvarka with that time of 38.24. He is on top for the moment, but the underhand chop record is 19.44 seconds, by the way, held by Dirk Brown, who is down there doing the German hosting with Marcus. So that's going to be a tough one to catch
up to.
Da
übernehme ich natürlich auch gerne die Frage von Guido. Wie sind denn deine ersten Eindrücke nach diesen zwei Heats?
Ja, das Holz sah jetzt so schon ein bisschen zäh aus, habe ich das Gefühl gehabt, so, dass auch die Äxte nicht ganz so gut passten. Christoph, tut's mir leid, erster Wettkampf, denke mal, sehr viel Nervosität dabei gewesen. Hat am Anfang gemerkt, er muss vom Block absteigen und wieder aufsteigen. Und dann hat er auch die Footholds angeschnitten, wenn ich es richtig gesehen habe. Es war sehr knapp, aber er hat sie angeschnitten gehabt. Das heißt dann DQ, weil er imaginär ja weniger Holz durchtrennen würde als der Gegner, weil die Footholds sind da die Standflächen, wo er draufsteht. Das ist wirklich jetzt schlecht gelaufen für ihn, weil es auch zumal es ja für die nächste Runde wichtig ist. Und ja, beim Stefan Odvarka hat man gesehen, er musste auch nachschlagen. Er musste auch nachschlagen nochmal. Driver nicht gut gesetzt, sage ich mal, nicht gut platziert gehabt. Auch wieder 2-3 Sekunden verloren. Und bei Stefan Stark, ja, kann man sagen, ist eben auch dem Alter vielleicht ein bisschen geschuldet. Die Frequenz ist relativ langsam, Holzachs passt nicht ganz so gut zusammen. Also dann wird es auch irgendwann 10 mit einer Minute Holzhacken. Mit einer 3-Kilo-Achs ist dann auch für jeden Athleten, der auch wirklich fit ist, topfit ist, auch wirklich schwer, dann eben da noch volle Kanne durchzuziehen.
Da höre ich schon sehr den Trainer raus. Also als Athlet kennen wir dich ja gut, aber da war schon sehr viel Analyse dabei, die auch als Trainer hier sehr gut ankommen würde. Erzähl ein bisschen was über deine Funktion als Trainer. Das ist ja was Neues.
Ja gut, ich habe dieses Jahr im Prinzip die Anfrage bekommen, ob ich als Trainer am Stützpunkt arbeiten möchte, da ich jetzt als Sportler nicht zur Verfügung stand. Und dann habe ich mich bereit erklärt. Ich habe es schon mal vor ein paar Jahren gemacht, habe es aber wieder unterbrochen, weil es einfach auch stressig war und viel Zeit in Anspruch genommen hat, zumal ich hier dabei auch noch Sportler war dann eben.
All right, Dirk Brown just talking about how they've asked him to become a trainer for the German team and for German athletes, and this is an opportunity for him to take his experience and his know-how and pass it on to a new generation of timber sports athletes and perhaps create the next generation of pros through the rookies here in Germany, as well as to perhaps bring another level of athleticism to the sport of timber sports through his experience and his ability to help the new athletes come into the scene and maybe join the timber sports family and continue to expand this incredible sport here. And we're going to take a look back at the Amarok Cup 2020.
Athletes ready! 3, 2.
All right, back into action, and Ralf Dengler, the 55-year-old, coming onto stage now. He will be battling up against Lars Seibert. Ralf is 178 centimeters tall, 80 kilograms, has been around the sport since the very inception of STIHL Timbersports, so he's got the history, he's got the experience. He is one of the lighter guys out there as well. Meanwhile, Lars Seibert, third place in the standings last year. Will he be able to step up to the next level today? Personal best for them, both of them around the 28-second mark, so that's pretty solid. We should see a good competition here between Ralf Dengler and Lars Seibert.
Athletes, ready!
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Good pace, good start by both of these guys. They are intact with each other now, just separating a little bit. Lars Seibert starting to bring the axe with a little bit more frequency down onto the block. Ralph Dingler hitting hard, a little quick stick there, and Lars Seibert moves over to the other side. 2 sticks by him, though, but he slabs out nicely there, gets a couple of big pieces away. Our cameraman had to jump out of the way. Ralph Dingler finally moving over to the side of his block. Lars Seibert with a good advantage here, and he gets through in a great time. Oh, the time didn't stop counting, though. Ralph Dingler still working on his, and now we see the time stopped finally for Lars Seibert at 33.98. I do believe that is going to be a bit faster, though, when we look back at the corrected time. Ralph Dingler, a couple of big sticks there on that block, and that is unfortunate. 2 more blows should do it here for him to get through. Oh, bad count on my part. It's going to be 3, and he is through in 56.60. So, until now, Stefano Dvarka had the fastest time with a 37.88. Now, they've just updated the time on my screen here, and Lars Seibert currently leads with a 30.95. Now, I misspoke earlier on. In this first round, the number 1 or top time gets 12 points, and then it goes to 16 points in round 2 and 18 points in round 3. So, just a quick correction on my part there to make sure that you guys are square on what's happening there. And you can see, yeah, the time running, and a couple of big sticks there for Ralph Dingler. That was unfortunate. Lars Seibert a little bit faster with his head frequency there, and managed to get through in a respectable time of 30.95. So that is 3 heats out of the way now for, or 4 heats, 3 heats out of the way now, excuse me, for our underhand chop. And we move on to heat number 4 with Matthias Thoma going up against Niels Müller. And there, a quick look at the overall standings. And because this is the first discipline, it is our standings for everything. Lars Seibert at the top 12 points with a 30.95. Stefano Dvarka and Stefan Graf in 2nd and 3rd places respectively. But you can see the time difference to 3rd place from 1st. It's off pace by almost 20 seconds. So I don't know how long that time from Stefan Graf will stand, but in the meantime, Lars Seibert, leading with a time of 30.95 and holding down the current 12 points. Still 2 more heats to go. Heat number 4 and heat number 5. And heat number 5, let's not forget, has the reigning German champion Danny Marr and the young and very strong Robert Ebner. So, Matthias Thoma coming out onto stage now. 46 years of age, 179 centimeters tall, nearly 80 kilograms, depending on what he ate for breakfast on the day. He is a Forester by, I wanted to say Beruf, but that's not something that's going to go down well with an English audience. Niels Müller, just joining him out on stage. Love the chops on Niels Müller there. Fantastic. 188 centimeters tall, 120 kilograms. The weight definitely on his side. And as 35 years old, a slightly younger man than Matthias Thoma. Let's see who's got the fast axe today.
Athletes, ready!
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Niels Müller on the right-hand side of your screen has been 5th place in the German Championships in 2018 and 19, so at least we know he's consistent there. He's got a good fast axe, taking short strokes, quick and powerful hits on the block. Moved over to the other side already. Looks like we might see a good time from Niels Müller today. Matthias Thoma now finally moving over to the other side, and oh my goodness, Niels Müller with a great block, and it's going to get through in a time of 28.80. Fantastic time for Niels Müller. Matthias Thoma, he is right there with him, not that far behind. Still working on the backside of his block. Probably could have gone a little bit deeper on the front side, but it's struggling on this backside with some hardwood at the moment. Just passing the 45-second mark, and one more should do it. Oh, come on. Here we go. There it is, finally at 50-54. But a great time by Niels Müller with 28.80. That is a good time for him. And that's going to put him at the top of the ranking in underhand chops. Looked really good. He was quick through the first side, got fast around the other side. Great stable hits. But the thing that I like to watch about that is the fact that he was really swinging that axe with a lot of frequency. Fast hits, a little bit shorter on the upstroke, as you can see there. Matthias Thoma taking a little bit higher up in the air. Niels Müller not going up so high, choking up on the axe on the downswing and then sliding his down for the double grip at the bottom of the axe handle. What a great heat by Niels Müller, showing some serious chops there. Please excuse the pun, but that was a nice run at 28.44 is the new updated time. And there you see he takes over the top spot in the underhand chop with Lars Seibert and Stefan Odvarka in 2 and 3. And now the time difference from first to second is 2.51 seconds, and to third is 9.44 seconds. So one more heat to go with a couple of strong and very quick axemen. Robert Ebner will be going up against Danny Marr.
Alles übrigens auch Covid-19-konform. Man sieht es schön, dass die Athleten bis zur Bühne mit der Maske unterwegs sind, dann die runternehmen und entsorgen. Was mir auch aufgefallen ist, Dirk, du leidest ein bisschen mit, wenn es Schwierigkeiten gibt. Ist man da mit so viel Herzblut noch dabei?
Ja, auf alle Fälle. Man sieht ja dann die Fehler, die gemacht werden, sag ich mal. Beim Lars jetzt zum Beispiel, hat man es gesehen, dass im Underhand die Technik, also es passte nicht, die Axt mit dem Winkel von seinem Körper, das hätte er viel besser machen können. Da wäre für ihn viel mehr drin gewesen, aber ein super Zeit gemacht mit knapp unter 31. Aber Nils, wie ich schon sagte, im Underhand ist er sehr stark, hat er schon mal eine gute Leistung gebracht und ist gut im Wettkampf reingekommen. Und vielleicht motiviert ihn das jetzt auch für die nächsten Disziplinen eben dann auch dort nochmal alles abzurufen. Lars hat auch eine super Zeit gemacht. Ich denke mal, dass die anderen beiden jetzt vielleicht noch ein Schüppchen drauflegen werden. Und man konnte jetzt auch schon sehen, dass das Holz relativ gut chippt. Und ja, ich denke schon, dass da jetzt Zeiten unter 30 Sekunden rauskommen werden.
Immer wenn ich dich ansehe, sehe ich hier hinten so tolle historische Bilder. Vielleicht können wir in deiner Historie auch ein bisschen graben, wenn jetzt schon die Zeit da ist. Du hast ja als Kraftsportler angefangen. Wie bist du von dieser Sparte zu Timbersports gekommen?
Also ich bin da schon seit meinem 15. Lebensjahr habe ich schon Kraftsport gemacht im Prinzip. Bin dann als Forstwirt, habe 30 Jahre als Forstwirt gearbeitet.
All right, Dirk talking about how he got his start into timber sports and his history of the sport of timber sports. And a lot of the time we refer to timber sports as the original extreme sport, which is, I think, safe to say. It was out there before freestyle BMX, before freestyle motocross, before skiing, before any of these other sports that are currently popular at the moment. This is how the guys that were working in the timber sport, the timber industry, competed against each other and figured out who was the best, and that's basically why we can call this the original extreme sport.
Du bist doch hier Kraftsportler und so, und du bist doch bald, hast da nicht Bock drauf, sowas zu machen. Das passt natürlich, weil ich es eigentlich immer schon machen wollte, weil ich es immer schon geil fand und auch die Sportler geil fand, auch wie das so rüberkam, dieses Authentische auch im Prinzip, auch in der Natur. Es war meistens immer an so einem Lake, an so einem See. Und so, und das war toll. Und ja, deswegen bin ich dann reingejumpt eben im Prinzip dann 2003 und habe dann hier und da dann eben meine Erfolge eingeheimst.
Ja, hier und da ist sehr nett gesagt. Es ist ja die Original Extreme Sport und wir wollen ganz gerne ein bisschen in der Geschichte zurückschauen. Schwarz-Weiß-Bilder kommen jetzt auf uns zu. Richtig geil, the history of STIHL Timbersports.
More easily than most people can chop one up. When it really comes to tackling large lumps, you can't beat the men of the forestry companies. An axeman's gathering.
This Tom is losing the loss and gets it. Look at this, Cormac is playing a great game of catch-up.
All right, here we go with the final heat in underhand chop. Robert Ebner coming out onto the stage right now. Second place, or what was it, third place or second place last year? Doesn't matter, he was among the top three. Third place, correcting on that one. So we're looking for Robert Ebner to do some damage today against Danny Marr, the reigning German champion. Will he be able to do it? Both of these guys very good with the axe. And Robert actually holds the German record for the standing block chop. He got that back in 2018, and so far it has held as the German record. Let's see if he can put something together here on the underhand chop. Two very, very motivated guys. And get ready. Here we go. Robert Ebner, Danny Marr.
Athletes, ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Weight and height-wise, there's not much different between these guys, so it's all about who's got the fast axe today. Danny Marr, Robert Ebner going at it hard. Robert Ebner right close on your screen there. Both of them with quick axe speed, but Danny Marr moving over to the other side just ahead of Robert Ebner. Now Ebner joins him, and it looks like it's going to be a good one for Danny Marr right there now in front of you, close to you on the screen, and he's got that block loose. I can see it moving. There it goes, 22:34. That's a personal best for Danny Marr, and Robert Ebner not that far behind, only 0.61 seconds off pace in second place. Woo! What a battle. Wow, that couldn't have been any closer. Wait for the corrected times, but we do know that we have a personal best for Danny Marr. Let's look at this one again. The first couple of big slabs coming off of that block for Danny Marr right there in front of you with the black shoes and black pants there. You see Robert Ebner in the blue shirt. He switches over. He came around just a little bit behind Danny Marr on that one, so he could have been a bit faster there. But I tell you what, 22.10 seconds, a personal best right there for Danny Marr after the corrected time. Robert Ebner with a 22.67, 57 hundredths of a second difference. That is not a lot. So it's going to be a good battle between those two. We see there, personal best, Danny Marr. He wins the underhand chop. He'll take those 12 points home. Robert Ebner right there in second place. He gets 11 points. Niels Müller, 28.44 was his time. 10 points for him, and there you see, that is how the overall standings look, and that is underhand chop done and dusted. The stage will get changed now for the stock saw, and you'll get to see our first motorized tools on stage.
Ich bin mir nicht ganz sicher, der Titelverteidiger in jedem Fall on fire. Dirk, ist das eine Überraschung für dich, wie Guido angedeutet hat?
Nein, absolut nicht. Danny ist am Underhand der stärkste in Deutschland aus meiner Sicht. Aber überraschend bin ich über Robert seine Leistung, weil ich hatte in letzter Zeit im Underhand nicht so gut gesehen. Und er hat jetzt wirklich gut gearbeitet, denke ich, im Training jetzt auch, in den Trainingscamps auch vor allen Dingen. Hat er sich von Martin auch noch viele Tipps geholt. Und es war ein ganz knappes Rennen. Man hat beim Robert gesehen, der vorletzte Driver war eigentlich schon, dass der Block gehen wollte. Er musste noch einen nachsetzen. Das war genau der Schlag, der ihm jetzt gefehlt hat, um vielleicht da zu gewinnen. Und Danny ist am anderen immer schon stark gewesen, deswegen alles super.
Und wir haben jetzt auch die besten zwei gleich im direkten Duell noch einmal hier im Split.
All right, looking at these two top guys, Robert Ebner and Danny Marr. You saw Danny Marr moves over to the other side of that block a little bit earlier. Danny Marr also seems to have a quicker axe frequency, so he is hitting that block more often than Robert was. Robert was just trying to get those big, heavy hits, and you can see there, not a lot of difference between those two gentlemen. Danny Marr and Robert Ebner, for sure, will be battling through the rest of this day, barring any unforeseen circumstances. It should be a good battle between last year's third place and last year's overall winner.
Und Danny ist am Ende aber immer schon stark gewesen, das kann der Robert schon einordnen. Also ich glaube schon eher, dass es vielleicht so Robert sogar ein bisschen motiviert sogar noch, weil er jetzt relativ nah am Danny dran war. Weil der Abstand war, denke ich, vorher ein bisschen größer. Und ich freue mich für Danny, dass er jetzt seine Leistung abrufen konnte und jetzt er vielleicht auch im Wettkampf drin ist, Nervosität vielleicht ein bisschen ablegen kann als Titelverteidiger, als der Gejagte vor allen Dingen. Und hat auch vor allem schon mal eine kleine Duftnote abgesetzt, dass er wirklich auch wirklich.
So just a quick note there that Dirk mentioning about how Danny Marr is the man with a target on his back. I also said this off the top of the show as well, that he is the guy that's going to have to really battle hard because everybody's going to be looking to catch up with him. So there we see round number one done and dusted. Danny Marr, Robert Ebner at the top. So the overall, that means they will stay in those positions that you see from the underhand chop. Now, when things will start to to shuffle and change a little bit in the overall is when we get through these second and third disciplines in round number 1.
Das Tool. Bitte sehr.
And coming up, stock saw.
After the starting shot, the contestants have to cut 2 wooden discs, so-called cookies, within a 10-centimeter mark. 1 downward and 1 upward. The attempt is only valid when both discs have been cut off completely and within the marks. The STIHL MS661CM stock saw is used in STIHL Timbersports as the ultimate test of operator skill. Designed for the toughest jobs in forestry, it produces approximately 7.3 horsepower, has a displacement of 91.1 cc, and weighs 7.4 kilograms. To ensure evenly and fairly matched saws, professional STIHL technicians prepare and test the saws before each competition.
Und damit kommen wir auch schon zur Startliste. In Heat 1 Christoph Lang gegen Matthias Thoma. Heat Nummer 2 Ralf Dengler gegen Stefan Odwarka. In Heat Nummer 3 Nils Müller gegen Robert Ebner. Heat 4 Danny Maar gegen Lars Seibert. Und dann in Heat Nummer 5 Steffen Graf gegen
All right, there's
Stefan
our
Stark.
stock saw
Guido,
breakdown.
bitte
Christoph
übernehmen Sie.
Lang will go over to go up against Matthias Thoma. This is the first time today that we'll see these two guys battling against each other. Christoph Lang right there in the tunnel before he comes out. Now, this is where it's all about the technique. The saws are the same. There's nothing different between stand A and stand B. These are off-the-shelf stock saws, which is why they call this the stock saw. It is an MS661 saw. You can go out and buy this saw at your local STIHL dealership, and you'll get a piece of equipment that is absolutely reliable. Now, it comes down to technique. If you pull or push too hard trying to cut through that block, then what will happen is the saw could very well stall, which means you have to restart that saw, and that kills your time. The guys will have an opportunity to start the saws, give them a couple of revs to make sure that everything is running, and then they will leave them running as they place them on the floor. And if you see, you'll see in the pictures a little bit later on, there are these rubber pads that they've put down on the floor to make sure that the saws don't hop away on the athletes. Also important is to see that both these athletes start with their hands on the wood.
Your saw.
Now, as I said, no changes have been made to the blades or the motors on these saws. They are both exactly the same pieces of equipment. And here we go.
Ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
So Christoph Lang, Matthias Thoma going at it. 2 cookies need to be cut off of that section, and it looks like Matthias Thoma's got a definite advantage. Oh, yes, he does. Drops that in a personal best 11:19. Christoph Lang with a 13:03. Now, this is the stock saw, but you just saw in the orange field the white number, 3rd place for Christoph Lang. What you saw there was the overall placement after the stock saw has been done. We'll give you a little bit more information on that, but keep an eye on those orange fields. That gives you the overall placing, not the placing in the stock saw. Now, let's look back at this again. Matthias Thoma on the far side of your screen with the yellow and blue. He had a really nice, clean first cut. Not a lot of swing to get that upcut started again. Definite advantage there. And as they say, thin to win. He had a real nice, thin first disc, and his second disc wasn't all that thick either. They have to make those cuts within 10 centimeters. If they cut out of the disc or if they cut over a line, then they are disqualified. So there's a lot of things that are going on down there on stage for these athletes to make sure that they have a really good and proper cut. Now, looking at the stock saw ranking, first heat, Matthias Thoma with a good cut and a personal best of 11:04. He gets the 12 points for now. Christoph Lang with a 1.87 off the pace. And that means Matthias Thoma moves into the overall lead after stock saw, but there's still a few more heats to go in this discipline. So next up, we have Ralf Dengler going up against Stefan Odwarka. And there we see Ralph coming out onto the stage. Making sure that everything is nice and clean here on the stage. Our crew doing a bang-up job. And again, you want to make sure none of that sawdust is hanging out underneath your feet while you're out there. You need to have as much stability as possible when you're out there. Slipping with an axe or a saw in your hand is not exactly the optimal situation, but these guys here on the crew do a great job in making sure that everything gets cleaned up nice and tidy. All right, so Ralph Dengler waiting for his station, stand A, to be ready. And he has been recalled off stage to make sure that the guys don't feel too much pressure out there. And there you see that STIHL MS661 saw in close-up. Last preparations on stage. Final checks by Bart Janssen and Jörg Kurzenberger to make sure that those blocks are properly marked and nice and even. And here we go, finally, guys coming out on stage. There's Stefan Odwarka, and there are head-to-heads. The age difference, noticeable, 55 to 36. Weight, a little bit of a difference as well, but here plays no role whatsoever. This is all about control of the saw and keeping that motor running and a good steady pace. Quick test by Ralph Dengler with a solid placement on that block. And remember, 10 centimeters of space to cut 2 discs. One down, one up.
Warm up your saw. ST, ready.
Here we go.
To your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Really quick start by Stefan Odwarka. Ralph Dengler right there with him. Odwarka with a clear advantage. Gets that first disc done, and he had no swing on the switch to up. And, oh my goodness, a great come from behind with a fantastic time of 12.84 by Ralph Dengler. Stefan Odwarka with a 13.26. And you saw there, even though Ralph Dengler had the faster time, he's sitting in third place in the overall for the moment because of his placement in stock saw. So right now, Matthias Thoma still on top, but Ralph Dengler with a good time of 12.75 adjusted is sitting in second place. And Stefan Odwarka with an adjusted time of 13.09. He was just slightly behind, and I thought that Odwarka actually had the advantage. It looked like on the upstroke he was in the lead, but obviously Ralph Dengler had the better upstroke on his and managed to get through that one nice and clean. And there you see, not much difference between the two of them actually. So Matthias Thoma still leading with that personal best 11.04. Ralph Dengler moves into second place in stock saw with Christoph Lang sitting in third, just 1.87 seconds off pace. And you can see now how this is going to start shifting the overall standings. Matthias Thoma still on top because of the scores between the first two disciplines. Stefan Odwarka and Ralph Dengler moving into second and third places respectively as we get ready for our next heat between Robert Ebner and Nils Müller. Christoph Lang in the overall standing sitting down there in in sixth place. So right now he is in the mix, but he needs to really have a good standing block chop in order to be among the top 8 to move on to round 2. So Nils Müller coming out onto the stage now. He'll be going up against Robert Ebner. Niels seems pretty relaxed as he makes his way to stand A on stage. And Robert Ebner now joining him on stage. Two pretty evenly matched guys as far as their details are concerned. Robert Ebner highly motivated, a new papa. Niels Müller. Couple of solid Timbersportler. Here we go.
Warm up your soul.
Easy clap on the start, as the kids today say. And their saws are running and ready to go. Robert Ebner up against Niels Müller. Niels Müller stand A, Robert Ebner stand B.
Ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Robert Ebner with a nice angle there. Niels Müller right there with him. Oh my goodness, that was very close on the drop of those first cookies. And it looks like Niels Müller is slightly behind Robert Ebner. Robert Ebner with a time of 11.73. Niels Müller with a 12.31. By the way, stock saw for both of these gentlemen, personal bests are 10.80 for Niels Müller and 10.45 for Robert Ebner. So they're a little off of their personal bests at the moment, but good times today for both of these gentlemen. Nice start by Niels Müller right there. He's a little wide on that first cut, but he looked good. Robert Ebner had a really, really thin disc. Now, why is thin to win? Because there's not as much resistance from the wood as they're pushing the saw blade through. So that is a key factor. Robert Ebner very, very nicely lined up there, but look how close these two cookies drop to each other. Just a little bit behind each other. Yeah, they're right in second and third places at the moment. Robert Ebner with an 11.63, only 59 hundredths of a second off pace. Niels Müller, 1.15 seconds off pace from the still leading Matthias Thoma with his personal best, 11.04. And now we see in the overall standings how things are shifting around a bit now. With a good time that he had earlier on in the underhand chop, Robert Ebner now moves into the overall lead.
Ja, lieber Guido, ich kann sie dir nicht beantworten, aber hoffentlich Dirk. Wie wird man wirklich schneller an der Stocksaw?
Ja, es geht einfach darum, dass man wirklich einen guten Start macht, so wie es Robert gerade gezeigt hat. Er hat sehr schnell gestartet und man konnte jetzt vielleicht, wenn man das nochmal aufeinanderlegen würde, sehen, wo Robert besser war, dann verloren hat und dann wieder besser war. Also man konnte sehen, er war schneller am Holz, hat aber im ersten Schnitt nicht gut geschnitten, da war der Nils dann schneller, obwohl er später am Holz war. Beim Auerschnitt hat der Robert wieder rausgeholt und hat dann trotzdem noch den Schnitt gewonnen, obwohl, wie gesagt, der Nils eigentlich bei der ersten Scheibe trotzdem schneller war. Und das ist eben das Wichtige, dass man ein Gefühl dafür bekommt, wann man die Säge beschleunigen kann und drücken kann oder nicht. Man hat in den vorigen Heats gesehen, dass viele Athleten ein bisschen zu viel gedrückt haben. Und dann wirkt man die Säge einfach ab, die Drehzahl geht runter und man bleibt nicht im optimalen Drehzahlbereich.
So Dirk Brown just basically a little bit more elaborate, talking about the things that I talked about earlier on, how if you push too hard on the saw, the rotation of the blade starts to slow down a bit, that you want to have basically the perfect amount of pressure so that the saw blade doesn't stop or stall the engine, but not so much that it's slowing down and you're not getting through with a really clean cut. And what we saw there is Niels Müller and Robert Ebner both had very good cuts, but Robert Ebner was just a little bit faster on the start and managed to get through with a good bottom swing and getting back up onto that upwards cut nice and clean. And that means he currently sits in the top spot in the overall standings, but we still have 2 more heats to go with Danny Marr coming up in the next heat, and he is going to be the one that everybody's going to be keeping a close eye on. The reigning German champion will be, as we said, the man that everybody else is hunting, but Danny Marr, we saw with that underhand chop, he was really solid there, and if he can get a good time in this stock saw, then he should take over the top spot in the overall standings, but he needs to get that time first.
Und dem wir ganz fest die Daumen drücken. Eine Freigabe gibt es jetzt für unseren Guido. Es geht weiter mit dem nächsten Hit.
All right, so we're getting ready for our next heat, and for all of you out there viewing on Twitch, welcome to the STIHL Timbersports German Championships 2020, coming from Studio 6 at the Bavaria Film Studios. And now the reigning German champion coming out onto stage, Danny Marr. He had a fantastic underhand chop. If he gets a good cut here in the stock saw, then he will take over the top spot in the overall. But he needs to get through a very good cut. Next up with him is Lars Seibert, second place in the overall standings in the 2019 German Championships. So two guys that were on the podium that know each other very well from last season are out here again battling against each other for supremacy in this German Championship. Danny Marr, by the way, stock saw his best time is a 10:39. And Lars Seibert is a 10:36. How close together are those two times for best times in this particular discipline? Will we see one today? It's always possible that a world record could drop. We saw a world record in Poland last weekend. Maybe another one today. Let's see. Oh, great start by Danny Marr and Lars Seibert both. Lars Seibert a little bit slower on the downstroke, and a nice thin disc for Danny Marr on the upstroke. Danny Marr's got this one in a time of 10:96. And that is first place overall for him. Lars Seibert with a 13:04. He was a little bit slower on the downstroke, picked up speed on the upstroke, though, and it looks like we're going to have two clean cookies on both of these stands. Great times for both of these gentlemen. And if we look at the overall, Lars Seibert moves into fifth place here after stock saw, with Danny Marr taking over the top spot. And look at that quick start by Danny Marr. You could see him earlier marking the top of that block with the chalk to really give himself a starting point. And as I said, and I keep saying thin to win, well, he had a good thin starting disc. And you could see there barely any swing on the return to the upstroke. It was a little bit slower for Lars Seibert on the way down, but on the way up, he looked very solid. And, oh, check out how thin that second disc is from Danny Marr. That's a tough one to get on the upstroke, to get it that thin and that accurate. So really, really good job by Danny Marr. And a 10:81, great time here for Danny Marr. And that means 24 points and the top of the leaderboard for him, with Robert Ebner right behind him. And in fifth place, Lars Seibert, who we just saw on stage with Danny Marr. And if you want to get involved in the conversation, hashtag KissMyAxe or hashtag STIHL Timbersports, and upload your pictures, your questions and comments. Always good to hear from the fans of timber sports out there and people that are just joining us for the first time to witness the world's original extreme sport, the STIHL Timbersports German Championship 2020 here today, coming to you from Studio 6 in the Bavaria Film Studios just outside of Munich, Germany. So next heat coming up, Stefan Graf will be going up against Stefan Stark. Stefan Graf, first athlete to come out on stage to get himself positioned by his saw. And you can see him there marking already, using the ruler and a marker to mark his first line. And we saw that Danny Marr did this earlier as well. This is just an opportunity for him to really set himself two lines to give himself a guide. And the same thing happening for Stefan Stark on the far side. And then these guys will start their saws, and we are underway with the final heat in stock saw here.
Warm up your soul.
Stefan Graf, stage left. Stefan Stark, stage right. Stefan Graf is a carpenter by trade. Stefan Stark, a forester. And the technician, Stefan Graf, underway with that saw really nicely, but Stefan Stark with a great first cut. Fantastic, and he gets through on the upstroke. A little hop by Stefan Graf, and that's a mistake, and that leaves Stefan Stark wide open for the win on this one. What a heat between those two guys. Stefan Stark with a time of 11.66. That's a very quick time. Very, very nice. And Stefan Graf with a little hop on the upstroke had to reposition so that he didn't cut over the line with a time of 12.70. Really wide start there. That is a big cookie. And there you see Stefan Stark. He had a thinner one. Much easier to cut on that downstroke. You just have to be real careful that when you've got a thin cookie like that you don't cut outside of the cookie. You need to have a complete disc in order for it to count. But man, he was quick on that heat. Stefan Stark with a great time. In the stock saw results, he is sitting in third place, and that does a very good thing for his overall standings. He is in sixth place in the overall with Danny Marr, Robert Ebner, and Niels Müller sitting in 1, 2, and 3 at the moment in the overall standings. So after stock saw, Danny Marr on top, Matthias Thoma, Stefan Stark. Oh, a shifted time there. No shifted time, but it was a very nice time by Stefan Stark, sitting third in the stock saw, and that means in the overall, there is our change. Stefan Stark and Stefan Graf, 6 and 7. Danny Marr, Robert Ebner, and Niels Müller, 1, 2, and 3 at the moment with 24, 20, and 18 points respectively.
Ja, Danny Marr führt mit 4 Punkten. Ist das eine Überraschung? Ist das das, was du erwartet hast? Und inwieweit baut das jetzt noch viel mehr Spannung auf, bevor wir in die nächste Disziplin gehen?
Also ehrlich gesagt habe ich das mit Danny genauso besprochen gehabt im Vorfeld, dass das so für ihn ausgehen kann und dann einen komfortablen Vorsprung hat. Jetzt sind die anderen beiden, jetzt Stefan Stark und Stefan Graf, haben so ein bisschen unter ihren Möglichkeiten geschnitten, glaube ich. Ein bisschen zu viel riskiert und ein bisschen zu viel gedrückt hier und da. Und haben Zeit verloren. Auch der Lars hat im Prinzip den Schnitt versaut, weil er einfach ein bisschen zu viel wollte, ein bisschen zu viel gedrückt. Und das ist eben das Problem, dass die Säge eben in Anführungszeichen ein bisschen mehr als 7 PS hat. Und das ist die Kraft eben, da muss man sehr, sehr feinfühlig sein. Also da geht es nicht über die Physis, sondern wirklich über das Gefühl, was man hat im Schnitt, dass man das aus dem Holz rausholen kann. Wie gesagt, der Robert hat es gezeigt. Er hat beim Aufwärtsschnitt im Prinzip den Nils wieder überholt, der nach der ersten Scheibe vorne war. Und deswegen, ja, von Danny gut ausgegangen, top Zeit geschnitten, super Start gemacht und schön.
Let's take a look at this head-to-head here between Matthias Thoma. This wasn't a head-to-head, in fact, this is just the 2 fastest times of the day in the stock saw. And you can see the difference in the style of the upward cut by Danny Marr and Matthias Thoma. Very, very close. Only 0.23 of a second off pace from each other. Matthias Thoma had a personal best with an 11.04. Danny Marr was just slightly faster with a 10.81, but you could see how similar their style was. And as Dirk was talking about, it's about the pressure and not putting too much on or too little on, and making sure that you keep good, efficient cutting with that saw as you move through that block. All right, coming up, the next discipline is the standing block chop. Now, the standing block chop is an older discipline that is used to simulate felling a tree. You'll get to hear a little bit more about that as we have the stage ready to go, and you get to take a look at about what the standing block is about. But before then, we're going to talk a little bit about the wood that is specially designed for
Timbersports uses wood as a natural product. It is therefore especially important to maintain fair competition conditions and that the wood is sustainably grown.
Hi, my name's Spike Milton, Global Sports Director for STIHL Timbersports. Together with Head of Wood, Mr. Bart Jensen, we have a wealth of knowledge and experience with long-term wood management.
We have different partners for finding the good wood, and here we are on one of the plantations of our partner this year.
One of the biggest challenges that I actually have as part of my role is to work with our wood suppliers. There are some beautiful young trees. These young trees are the future. For us, we have to find consistent and fair wood.
The international timber sports competitions mainly use fast-growing poplar wood from certified plantations, as well as white pine.
After all our STIHL Timbersports competitions, the spent wood is collected and recycled. A great example of this is wood pellets for biomass to be used for green energy.
Ja, Nachhaltigkeit, ein ganz, ganz großes Thema, auch bei STIHL Timbersports. Ich glaube, es ist in jeder Hinsicht wichtig und wir schauen einmal die Brackets an, die aktuellen. Lieber Dirk, da gibt es auch einiges zu erzählen. Wenn sie denn jetzt auftauchen, wenn nicht... doch, da sind sie schon.
So looking at the first round, we are on through the underhand chop, we're through the stock saw. We're going to take a look at the placements here as they come up, and you can see Danny Marr has been solid. He won the underhand chop, he won the stock saw, and that means he is sitting in the lead in the overall standings with 24 points. Robert Ebner came in second in the underhand chop, but he was sitting in fourth place in the stock saw, and that means through those points he managed to get up into the second place in the overall standings. So just because you don't win or come in the top three in one of these particular disciplines doesn't mean you're out of the running. You just have to really be consistent and get your way through all of these various disciplines cleanly. And right now, Robert Ebner is still in a good position, but Lars Seibert and Danny Marr are coming on strong. And let's not forget, there are a couple of other guys out there, like Niels Müller, who is currently sitting in third in the overall standings. Now, after the standing block chop, we will be through with round number 1. That means the top 8 guys from this round will move on to round number 2. So at the moment, Stefan Odwarka is on the bubble. Ralf Dengler and Christoph Lang are currently out. So if they both have incredible standing block chops, then they may well get themselves into a good position and perhaps move on to round number 2. But it's going to be an uphill battle against a lot of these other guys who are really, really strong in this discipline. One guy who is in particular very, very strong in the standing block chop is none other than
standing block chop.
Robert Ebner.
At the standing block chop, the felling of a tree with an axe is simulated. A vertically positioned wooden block with a diameter of 30 centimeters has to be cut through both sides. A powerful and precise swing with the axe is the premise of a good result.
Und damit werfen wir einen Blick
as I
auf
was
die
saying, Robert
Startliste
Ebner
vom
currently
Standing Block
holds
Chop.
the
Wir haben
German
Heat 1,
national
Christoph
record
Lang
for the
und
standing
Steffen
block
Graf.
chop of
Heat Nummer 2, Matthias Thoma gegen
15.46
Nils
seconds.
Müller.
The world record is currently held by Matt Kogar from the USA. He achieved that in 2018 with a time of 11:03. Now, it has happened in the past where world records are broken at national events. Last weekend, we saw this happen with the stock saw with Marcin Jukowski from Poland, who managed to get a stock saw time of 9:51, and that was a world record there. So will we see a world record fall today for the standing block chop? It's anybody's guess, and I love to see that happen, but it's going to take a really, really good and heavy block. So, Christoph Lang, stand A, Stefan Graf on stand B. A couple of pretty evenly matched guys, I would say, in this one. Christoph Lang, from his height, a little bit of an advantage. He can use that for those long, powerful swings, but technique is also a major importance here. You don't want to get in too deep and get that axe stuck. You also have to have the right angle so that you can slab out nicely and get some good clean cuts there. So here we go.
Athletes, ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Quick start by Christoph Lang right in front of our position here, and he has gotten in there with some nice big slabs. Oh, a huge slip of the axe by him, though. That's going to cost them time as Stefan Graf is still working on the first side of his block on the other side of the stage on stand B. Now, they're both moving over to the other side, pretty much right on pace with each other here. Christoph Lang, some big, heavy hits. It's hard to say who's got the advantage here. Stefan Graf also slabbing out nicely, and were it not for one small mistake from Christoph Lang there, he might have had it. Oh, he's got it. A really good final hit there by Christoph Lang in a time of 35.67. That's a personal best for him. Stefan Graf with a time of 39.45. Even with the slip-up, Christoph Lang managed to come from behind and get a personal best. That is a great job. Imagine then, no slip-up, and he is through with an even better time. A great job by Christoph Lang there. See if we could see this again. Big, heavy hits, and right there, just glanced off the bottom of the block. And good that he had control of that axe. Meanwhile, Stefan Graf on the far side, they both moved over to the other side of their blocks pretty evenly. And maybe we see that, that axe glance off one more time here. I'm not sure if this is the angle. Nope, but they both move over just about the same time. In fact, Stefan Graf was over a little bit before Christoph Lang, but this final blow from Christoph Lang was just immense. A huge, powerful hit, and he had a good time there. 35.08, a personal best for him. And so far, after standing block, he is leading in this discipline. Let's see what that does for his overall standings. Yeah, Christoph Lang sitting in 6th place, so he's in a somewhat safe position at the moment. Let's see if he stays that way.
Jetzt haben wir schon das dritte Personal Best gesehen, lieber Dirk. Ich sehe das als positives Zeichen. Ja? Das heißt, für die deutsche Meisterschaft haben sich die Athleten offensichtlich sehr gut vorbereitet.
Ja, sollte man auch. Ist der größte Wettkampf, den man in Deutschland machen kann. Und da sollte man auch in Topform antreten. Christoph jetzt Personal Best ist sehr gut für ihn. Hat gesehen, die Axt mal kurz ausgerutscht, war jetzt nicht so gut gelöst, sag ich mal, Winkel nicht gut gestanden. Und beim Steffen hat man zum Schluss gesehen, dass er nochmal nachdreifen muss. Das kostet auch nochmal 2-3 Sekunden, was auch nicht gut ist. Man sollte eigentlich immer einen vollen Schlag machen, dann bricht der Block meistens weg. Wenn man nachtippt nur, ist es einfach nicht mehr, verliert man einfach Zeit, wenn man nicht ordentlich trifft. Der Block ist hängen geblieben und das kostet dann eben wertvolle Sekunden. Und wenn man überlegt, dass
so our next heat up will be Matthias Thoma up against Nils Müller.
Am Schluss dann noch mehr, weil man dann natürlich auch viele Punkte verloren hat.
Ja, für mich ist das irgendwie so cool. Das ist genau das, was ich mir
So Matthias Thoma, as far as the time is concerned, has a slight advantage with his personal best being a 28.98 in standing block, where Nils Müller has a 31.74 personal best in standing block. And we've already seen one personal best fall today in the standing block chop for Christoph Lang. And looks like Bart Janssen has done a good job collecting this wood here for these guys. So it could be that we see another couple of personal bests go. I would love to see that for all of these guys, but it can't always be the way. And it's going to be all about how the next heats go down. All right, and so we see Matthias Thoma coming on to the stage. As I said, his personal best in the standing block was a 28.98. He got that in Lüneburg in 2005 at the German Championship. Quick inspection of his block there as Nils Müller joins him on stage. And of course, we are observing all possible spacing and hygiene rules here to make sure that everybody is able to participate and at the same time be safe in these strange circumstances that we are dealing with at the moment worldwide. And you also notice that these guys all come out with 2 axes. The reason for that is if something seems to happen with one axe, they can quickly switch to the other. This is allowed in the rules. But of course, that kind of a situation would basically kill the time, so they want to try and avoid that as much as possible. All right, here we go. Matthias Thoma up against Nils Müller, heat number 2 in standing block chop.
Athletes, ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Some big hits from Nils Müller there. Matthias Thoma finally slapping out a bit, had to do a quick check on his block. Matthias Thoma, yellow and blue shirt. Nils Müller with the burgundy and black on the far side. Who's going to be moving over to the other side first is going to be Nils Müller. Big power hits, gets that axe stuck in there though. Matthias Thoma still struggling to get through the first side. And Nils Müller with the distinct advantage here. Thoma now finally moving over to the other side. Nils Müller looking like he's going to get through 3-4 more blows. Oh my goodness, one final blow and that did it for Nils Müller. Fantastic 36.53. Matthias Thoma still working on the backside now. Some big heavy hits there. Should do it in one more, and 55-74. Second overall right now for Matthias Thoma with that time, even though he was quite a bit slower, and that means he moves into the second position in the overall standings because of his time here and the way that the points are awarded for the overall. So Matthias Thoma with a 55-41. Niels Müller with a 36-13 is in second place in the standing block chop results. Christoph Lang with his personal best still holding on to the top spot with a 35-08. There you can see Niels Müller moving over to the other side. Big power hits there. Got a little bit caught up. And it's those moments where the axe gets caught in the wood where you really have to compose yourself, get that axe out, but that final blow from Niels Müller was just a beast. And he got that block off quicker than I expected he would. Good job by Niels Müller, currently sitting in second in the results of standing block, whereas in the overall, he is sitting on top of the overall standings. So, will he stay there for a while? He hopes so.
Richtig geile Bilder hier im Studio 6. Entschuldige, Guido, meine Euphorie hat mich übermannt, aber ich finde, das hat schon was ganz Besonderes. Noch dazu hier bei uns im Studio, wir hören das ja, wir erleben das hautnah und live mit, lieber Dirk. Für dich ist das normaler Alltag, schon klar, aber was sind denn so die Besonderheiten, auf die man gerade in dieser Disziplin achten sollte?
Ja, wie ich eben schon sagte, im Training ist ja wirklich, dass man sehr beweglich bleibt und auch in der Hüfte und im Schultergürtel sehr beweglich ist. Ich denke, der Nils hat es gerade sehr gut gezeigt.
The question was from Marcus about what's special and what needs to be paid attention to during the standing block chop, and Dirk is just explaining that you need to be very mobile, especially using your hips to generate the power through the axe. So you can't just swing from the chest. You have to use your whole body, pressing with the legs, rotating the hips, and bringing the axe to bear on that block with as much power as possible, but also having the right angle and making sure that you don't overdo it and get that axe stuck in the block, because, of course, as I mentioned earlier on, that is something that is going to slow down your time and cause problems. So best is to have that right angle so that you get that block out and get a nice cut and get some slabs out of the block and get through it quickly as possible with your axe.
Ja, jetzt weiß ich, warum ich mir in dieser Disziplin so schwer tue. Wir schauen mal, wie die Schedules ausschauen, was uns noch alles an Timbersports in den nächsten Wochen erwartet. Und da haben wir volles Programm. Also wir haben es bereits erwähnt.
Taking a look at our schedule for the next few weeks. We're in the German Champions right now. Next weekend we've got the Six Nations and the Rookie Cup here in Munich, Germany as well from Studio 6. Then also on the 20th of September we have the Four Nations Cup. Then 26th of September International Rookie Cup and the Czech National Championships. Those are both going to be coming to you from the Czech Republic. And then on the 3rd of October, Benelux Championships from the Netherlands. So plenty of action in timber sports over the next weeks. If you want to tune in and check that out, make sure you check out STIHLTimbersports.com for more information, updates, and athlete profiles.
Und somit können die sich auch für die WM qualifizieren, haben noch eine Möglichkeit, eben noch einen Wettkampf vorher zu machen, auch am Wettkampfholz vielleicht auch noch Exe testen und dann vielleicht die Qualifikation schaffen für die WM.
Also something that's important about this STIHL Timbersports German Championships 2020 here today in Munich is something that Dirk is just mentioning now, is the winner qualifies to go to the individual World Championships coming up in November. So it's a very, very big deal for these guys to have a good competition today. Stefano Dwarka coming onto the stage right now. We saw some pretty good action from him earlier on in the stock saw. He was not so strong, 10th there, but in the underhand chop, he was 5th. So at the moment, before the standing block chop, he is currently sitting in 9th place, but has an opportunity here to jump up in the standings with a good standing block chop. Now, his standing block best is 28.58. Out there with him, Stefan Stark. Standing block chop, his personal best is a 27.04. He got that at the 2007 German Championship in Potsdam. And to tell you the difference, the standing block chop best for Stefan Odwarka was the 2017 German Championship in Klingerthal. And here we go. Stefan Odwarka, tall guy. He's got a big, strong swing there. Stefan Stark on the far side, keeping pace with the younger man. Stefan Odwarka now moving over to the other side. A little bit of a delay getting those first slabs out, but here they come. Wow, big slabs flying across the stage here. And Stefan Stark now moving to the backside of his log. Odwarka looking good here at 30 seconds and change, and he gets it done in 31.89. So that sets him first place in the standing block chop, fourth in the overall standing. And there you see a nice time from Stefan Stark as well, puts him in fifth place in the overall standing after the standing block chop. So good results from both of these guys as we are through the heat number 3 in standing block. And what a difference in age there. Stefan Stark, 55 years old, still a viable contender out there going up against the younger man who was 36 in Stefan Odwarka. A great battle between those two gentlemen, absolutely fantastic. Another battle of the ages coming up shortly between Lars Seibert and Ralf Dengler. Lars Seibert, 38 years of age. Ralf Dengler, 55 years old. So among the two oldest gentlemen competing here today. And Ralf Dengler, as we said off the top of the show, has experience since the very first STIHL Timbersports contest. So he's been around since day one. And there we see results so far in standing block. Stefan Odwarka with a top time of 31.65. Christoph Lang with a personal best of 35.08. And looking at the overall standings, now Stefan Odwarka has moved into fourth place with Stefan Stark, who was on stage with him, sitting in fifth place. Nils Müller still in the top spot in the overall, but we still have 2 more heats to go. Heat number 4 and 5. Heat number 4 coming up will be with Lars Seibert and Ralf Dengler. Heat number 5, Danny Marr and Robert Ebner. Danny Marr and Robert Ebner battling against each other once again. They did it in the underhand chop. They'll do it again in the standing block chop. And this is a discipline that Robert Ebner is very strong in. This is his favorite discipline, and he currently holds the German national record for this discipline. So Danny Marr will definitely have that in mind. But before we get to them, it's going to be Lars Seibert and Ralf Dengler. Lars Seibert coming on stage now. Second place in the German Championships last year. Looking for a top position here today. He is in a good position to really step up. His personal best at standing block chop is a respectable 25.08. He got that at the German Championships in 2018 in Deggendorf. For Ralf Dengler, his personal best is a 26.72. And he got that at the Lingner Cup in 2009 in Hanover. Couple of test swings there for Lars to make sure that he is right on point. And he'll definitely be highly motivated here today.
Ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Wow. These guys are on point with each other. It's almost like they're in sync. And now Lars Seibert, a little stick, but he's getting a little bit of a faster pace. Oh, but his axe really got stuck in there this time. Moves over to the other side before Ralf Dengler. And he is just hammering away at that block. A nice big slab just came off for him. A couple more hits for Lars Seibert could do it. Ralf Dengler on the other side working on his backside now. And, oh, one more. Lars Seibert does it. There it is. Drops in 33.33. Ralf Dengler now passing the 37-second mark with a quick stick 2 times now, getting that axe blocked up. And one more hit should do it for Ralf Dengler at a time of 44.16. So Lars Seibert now moves up with that time into second in the overall, plus second in the standing block chop. That is a very, very good position for him to be in, with Danny Marr and Robert Ebner up next. And you could see the difference in styles here. Lars with a massively wide stance. And here he tries to get around, but that axe was just so deep in the wood that to go back and release it. Meanwhile, on the other side, Ralf Dengler, he was a little bit of a narrower foot stance, wasn't really rotating those hips into the hits. And here, watch the body position. Quick push on that back leg, rotates his hips into it, and you can see how deep that axe gets in there. And this is where it caused him the bit of the problem. And you can count that 1,000, 2, 1,000, just getting that axe out of there takes so much extra energy and time. And then once he moved on to the backside of it, this block wasn't long for Lars Seibert to get through. And you can see it was just hanging by a thread after this hit right here. Wanted to have it off, and he thought he had it. And then there it goes, finally down. So it could have maybe been 1 to 1.5 seconds quicker. And then Ralf Dengler. So standing block chop, Lars Seibert, Ralf Dengler in 7th place, Lars Seibert in 2nd place there. Christoph Lang still with the personal best, sitting in 3rd place, so he's in solid standings. Moving around in the overall, Niels Müller up at the top with Lars Seibert in 2nd place. Now Danny Marr and Stefan Odwarka in the top 4 with Matthias Thoma in 5th place. So yeah, interesting switches as we see how the points play a role here in the overall standing, with one more heat still to come, and that is Danny Marr up against Robert Ebner. These two guys will be going at it again with each other head-to-head on stage like they did at the Underhand Chop at the start of our show.
Oder technisch mal sauber arbeiten würde, dann wird am Standing für mich unschlagbar sein, weil er einfach das Gewicht hat. Er war super unterwegs, aber er hat trotzdem hier und da seine Fehler, auch technisch vor allen Dingen, weil er die Winkel nicht ordentlich trifft. Und dann eben der Hänger auf der ersten Seite. Und auf der zweiten Seite hätte er einfach unten noch hinten, also in seinem entfernten Holz, von ihm entfernten Holz, einen Chipschlag unten reinmachen müssen, wäre der Chip rausgeflogen, das Holz wäre schmaler gewesen, einen oben rein, wäre er weg gewesen.
Nimm weg den Chip!
Hätten nach 25 Sekunden gestanden, 26 sage ich mal bestimmt sogar, weil er das Potenzial dazu. Weil für mich ist einer der besten, also der ist, also vom Niveau her, ein Robert wirklich ebenbürtig ist. Aber ja, hat es eben nicht abrufen können. Tut mir leid für ihn. Das war ihm jetzt wichtige Punkte, die er verloren hat, weil jetzt gerade in diesen Zeiten wirklich viele Sportler reinkommen werden.
Ein ungeschliffener Rohdiamant, sage ich jetzt mal vorsichtig.
Definitiv.
Das im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes.
So our next and final heat in standing block chop, and this is a discipline that is very, very strong for Robert Ebner. And first out on stage will be Danny Marr. He's a professional fireman, so he is in tip-top shape and has to be that way. And we know that he is definitely the man to beat, being the current reigning German champion. Ended up in 9th place in the overall in the world in the individual competition last year. So, yeah. Danny Marr looking to maintain his status here and make it to another individual world championship. But this is a discipline that Robert Ebner is very, very solid in. Both at times, pretty solid. Danny Marr's personal best in 2018 in Deggendorf was a 22:51. Meanwhile, the personal best for Robert Ebner was a 15:46 at the World Championship in 2018 in Liverpool. Here we go.
Athletes, ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
All right, you can see here the difference. Robert Ebner with a very fast head speed on that axe as he just gets into it. But Danny Marr, realizing what's happening, has increased the frequency of his hits as well. Ebner and Marr both moving over to the other side, almost right on pace with each other. Robert Ebner and Danny Marr, this could be very, very close. A couple of big slabs by Danny Marr. Oh, and Robert Ebner drops it in a 20-23. Danny Marr finally down in a 24:53, and that puts them in 1st and 2nd place in the overall with a good set of times. They are a good 11 seconds for Robert Ebner anyway, 11.42 seconds faster than Stefan Odwarka, and he is just 4.30 seconds faster than Danny Marr. So good heat here between these two champs. And taking a look back, how quickly Robert Ebner was moving that axe. Danny Marr, it took him a bit to get into that pace, but he got there. Big slabs coming off for Robert Ebner, using that height of his, a long stroke, really, really nice hits there, great angle, super precise, excuse me. I'm pretty popping pea penny over here. And yeah, Danny Marr not giving anything up. The competitor till the end. Robert Ebner gritting his teeth through this one here. One final huge blow from him, and the time of, when it's all said and done and reflected here, the official time update is 19.89, and Danny Marr with a 24.26. Lars Seibert, who we saw earlier on, he was second place overall last year, is in fourth place at the moment, just behind Stefan Odvarka in the standing block chop results, but a bit of shifting around here in the overall standings, and he is in fourth place in the overall as well. So in a very good position to get out there and really make a difference as we go into round 2, where the points also increase for each of the disciplines.
Ja, es war sensationell. Das ist Entertainment. Mir hat das übrigens sehr gut gefallen, Guido, wie du gesagt hast. Robert ist wütend auf das Holz und Danny Marr am Schluss auch mit einer Lockerheit und mit Spaß und Freude an der Sache mit dabei. Und die sind so eng beisammen. Dirk,
all right, well, we did see a fantastic battle between those final two athletes, and Danny Marr and Robert Ebner just gritting and bearing it. And again, we're going to see head-to-head between these two. Now look at the difference between the speed that Robert Ebner is hitting that block to start with, and Danny Marr. It took him a few hits to get up to speed, but once he got up there, he was right there with Robert. Now Robert got over to the other side just a hair ahead of Danny Marr, and I think that was where the difference was. Had Danny Marr stepped across the line a little bit earlier, he might have been right there with him, but a couple of small mistakes by Danny Marr there, and it cost him a couple of seconds, and Robert Ebner was the faster in the standing block chop, which is a discipline he's anyway very strong at. So, interesting times as we move through into rounds number 2. Now, each of the next wins in round number 2 will mean 16 points instead of 12 for the athletes, so they have a chance to really spread out their points here and start to increase leads if they can manage it. The next up, we're going to talk a little bit about Amazon Prime because we're busy with them as well. Oh my God, how close is this? It's one of the closest heats we've had all day long, and it's Australia!
When the crowd start, you know, erupting, screaming, shouting, it just really does give you goosebumps.
It's pretty awesome to compete in front of a crowd like this.
I've been working my ass off the last 5 years to get to this point.
Is it going to be the checker ball? Yes, it is! And the crowd goes bananas! He moves, then goes down. He's looking good!
It might make some people nervous, it doesn't make me nervous. It makes me ready to go.
Coming here to the World Championship is one of my dreams. It has been ever since as a kid.
Ja, Rock and Roll, das ist für uns ein ganz wichtiges Thema, aber natürlich auch Toleranz. Grundsätzlich im Sport, grundsätzlich in
Something that we've got a lot in the news lately is the situation around the world, not just with COVID-19, but the thin layer of hate that is becoming more and more prevalent, and that's not something that's acceptable. And we talk a lot about tolerance here in the sport of timber sports, and it's a big deal for us as well.
Wie das bei STIHL Timbersports aussieht, das zeigen wir Ihnen jetzt.
We are Timbersports.
United by passion for the sport.
And competition.
We chop down racism.
And say yes to tolerance.
Yes to tolerance.
Say ja till tolerans.
Yes to tolerance.
Yes to tolerance.
是的，理解宽容。
Powiedz tak tolerancji.
Ja zu Toleranz.
We are Timbersports.
Und wunderbar passend dazu gibt es jetzt von einem unserer Partner, dem THW, einen sehr, sehr schönen Clip für Sie.
Wir sind getragen vom Ehrenamt, geprägt von unseren Erfahrungen
und getrieben von den Erwartungen an uns selbst. Helfen ist unsere Leidenschaft. Deine Zeit ist jetzt. THW.
Deine Zeit ist jetzt ein sehr, sehr schöner Slogan, wie ich meine. Dirk, wir werfen noch mal einen Blick auf die Brackets. Hier haben wir es.
So,
das heißt,
round one is complete. We've had the underhand chop, we've had the stock saw, and we've had the standing block chop. As we take a look now after standing block chop, how things will shift around in the overall rankings. Now we saw that Robert Ebner had the fastest time just ahead of Danny Marr in standing block. That means that Danny Marr still holds on to a slight lead over Robert Ebner of only 3 points, but Müller sitting in second or third place. Niels Müller with 25 points is not that far behind. And we're moving on with the top 8 athletes into round number 2. So in round number 2 in the single buck, we'll only have 4 heats, 2 athletes in each of these heats with this single man long saw, 2 meters long with sweeper and cutter teeth. Let's find out more about that.
Single buck. The single buck is a one-man saw about 2 meters long. With this, the athletes have to cut off a complete disc of a 46-centimeter thick wooden block. The perfect interplay between rhythm and strength is the key to success. The 2-meter-long cross-cut saw used for the single buck discipline is made especially for competition. A series of consistently patterned 10-centimeter-long teeth are cut with a laser on one side of the saw and then hand-sharpened. Saw teeth are divided into 2 types, cutters and rakers, just like on the old-school saws. The saw weighs about 5 kilos and its base price starts at around 1,500 euros.
Und damit starten wir in Runde 2.
Okay, so the single buck is just not an easy tool to use easily. So you have to have, as you heard from it earlier on, you have to have good rhythm, good flow, and you have to have the right angle every time. The problem here is when the saw gets stuck. Restarting a 2-meter-long cutting saw is not an easy thing to do as a single person putting that saw back and forth through the wood. So it is very, very important. Also, something that we've seen happen in the past is this. If the athlete gets a little bit too eager towards the bottom of cutting their disc and they break out the saw, that it could chip off the disc instead of cutting through the disc cleanly. And that's an important aspect you have to keep an eye on here, because if the disc is not complete, then it doesn't count. It's considered a DQ. So our first heat coming out will be Stefan Graf going up against Stefan Stark. Stefan Stark will be on stand B, Stefan Graf on stand A. Stefan Graf wearing the white and blue, Stefan Stark in the black and gray. You can see here, our judges will help them get those single buck saws set. There's a special measuring tool to make sure that the saw doesn't dig too far into that wood, and they'll make sure that both of these stands are evenly set in that wood to make sure that everybody has a fair start and it is even between 2 stands at the beginning of competition. And you can see that metal tool that they test the depth of the saw blade and those teeth. So critical will be a nice clean start and getting good flow happening. You have to have that rhythm. Now you see there's also a helper out there wedging and spraying the saw to make sure that it stays lubricated and is sliding through the wood easily, and a wedge will go in once the saw disappears into the top of that disc.
Athletes, ready.
And watching the style here will be interesting as well.
3, 2, 1, go!
Stefan Graf, Stefan Stark, both on there. Stefan Stark on the far side there with a nice long stroke. Stefan Graf also now getting into a good flow. And the wedge will join them in there. Now the wedges are in on both of these guys. Looks like we're going to have a very nice time for both of them here as, Stefan Stark gets through quicker than Stefan Graf did. And it's a nice run with an 18-1-1. Stefan Graf with a 19-5. That puts Stefan Stark in first, Stefan Graf in third in the overall standings there. You saw in the orange field. Good start by these guys. Nice times for both of them. And what a way to get the single buck underway here at the German Championships 2020. Looking back at the slow-mo, that is Stefan Stark right there. Nice, long, fluid strokes. No bowing of the saw at all. And here, Stefan Graf also concentrated a little hookup right there that slowed him down some. And that is just such a difficult situation. It wasn't massive, but it was enough that he had to look a little bit into his power reserves to try and get that saw going again and keep that flow. But you could see the amount of work that is required there to get that saw through and make those cuts nice and clean. And a little stick right there at the end, and that's what caused big problems for Stefan Graf. Meanwhile, nice long strokes. You can see on the far side, the saw just bowed. Huge amount of effort required to start that saw again. Stefan Stark with a fantastic finish and 2 clean discs for these gentlemen. So, 1811, 1950, our first 2 times are locked and loaded for the single buck. All right, Matthias Thoma coming out on the stage now. He'll be going up against Stefan Odvarka in this heat. And you notice Stefan Odvarka coming out onto the stage now. Matthias Thoma, if you pay attention to a little bit later on, you can see that he is wearing a pair of spiked shoes. They're more or less like sprinting shoes that you would see in track and field. They have spikes on the front of the shoe, and he'll be using that to have as much grip as possible on the ground in order to be able to really use every ounce of his energy on that saw. Now, Stefan Odvarka, on the other hand, is wearing a normal pair of sports shoes out there. 2 different ways of looking at how you're going to operate this. Stefan Odvarka has the advantage of height, which means that he can step back from the saw a little bit farther and really utilize his long legs and long arms to work that saw through the wood in the most efficient way possible. Now here, it's not about being fast and choppy. It's about having long, really solid strokes, but you're going to see different styles from different people. Some guys, they don't use the entire saw, but they're so fast with that saw that it doesn't really matter. Other guys will go long, slow strokes, but that cuts faster. Let's see how it goes.
To your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Matthias Thoma with a quick, choppy start that gets into his rhythm quickly. Stefan Odvarka has gone straight into a long rhythm. Advantage to Odvarka. His feet are slipping a bit, but he's using those long legs. He gets a little bit caught up there. His saw gets slowed down and stopped, but he is going to make it through the bottom of that block before Matthias Thoma. Hopefully, one little hook up there, and Stefan Odvarka with a 21.02. Matthias Thoma finally gets through in a 26.43. 3rd place and 6th place, respectively, in the overall. There you see with the orange field with the white writing in it. And Stefan Odvarka sitting 3rd place in single buck with Matthias Thoma in 4th after 2 heats. And there you see Matthias Thoma. He took a few short start sweeps and then went into the longer cutting. On the far side, though, you see Stefan Odvarka. He was really using the entire length of the saw. You see it disappear in behind that disc, but here he got a little bit hooked up, too much angle on the backstroke, and then got back into it. And yeah, right there at the end, hooked up again. A little bit of nervous action from him as we see that saw finally cut through the bottom there. But a good job for heat number 2 for Matthias Thoma and Stefan Odvarka. Time to beat at the moment comes from Stefan Stark with a 17.89. See if anybody can pull through that one. And then looking at the overall standings, shifts around. Stefan Stark, Danny Marr with 35 points is still sitting in second place, and he hasn't even competed in the single buck yet, so he is in very good standings here. All right, next up, Lars Seibert coming out onto the stage now. Also wearing spiked shoes, big, strong guy, can use his size to his advantage. Long legs, long arms, strong upper body. Nils Müller coming out onto stage. And two guys that could well have a battle against each other. We have a quick time out here from Bart Janssen as he asked Lars Seibert to pull off to the side so they can just check the block really quickly. Want to make sure that those blocks are even inside the rig to make sure that everything is solid. You don't want that thing wiggling around when somebody is dragging and pushing a 2-meter long crosscut saw. Everything seems to be okay, so Lars Seibert now finally can set his saw in place. Personal best for this discipline for Lars Seibert, 12:16. Personal best for Nils Müller, 11:88. So advantage in this case to Nils Müller. Saws are set. The technician, Nils Müller, making sure that everything is absolutely where he wants it to be. Lars Seibert doing the same thing on his stand. Left-hand side of the screen, stand A. Right-hand side of the screen, stand B. Lars Seibert in green on stand A. Nils Müller, burgundy on stand B. And look at the stance from Lars Seibert. He is ready to go with the wide stance. Here we go.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Quick start by both of these guys. Nils Müller looking very good. Lars Seibert also looking solid. Wow. He could have a very good time here. Lars Seibert right getting near to the bottom. Nils Müller hooks up a little bit. Lars Seibert with a 13.64. What a fantastic time for him. Nils Müller with a 16.93. Best time so far in single buck for both of these guys. And it looks like the discs are good for both sides. Wow, what a battle there. Lars Seibert with a 13.64. Incredible. Nils Müller with a 16.68. Just 3.28 seconds off pace. And there's the start right there. And the determination from Lars Seibert. Second place overall last year. What a great battle, though, between these two guys. Really pushing each other and pushing the pace as well. The difference between first and third place, 4.49 seconds. That's massive. A quick stick by Nils Müller right there. 2 times, in fact. One on the backstroke and one on the front. And that just cost him too much time. So let's look here now after 3 heats in single book. The 2 top guys just battled with each other. Lars Seibert and Nils Müller with a 13.40 and a 16.68. Danny Marr still in third place in the overall. Robert Ebner in 5th overall, and neither of them have been in a heat yet. That's coming up next. So, Robert Ebner coming out on the stage. Robert Ebner, personal best in single buck, 11.61. Danny Marr is a 12 even. Again, pretty evenly matched with this slight advantage going to Robert Ebner, but the advantage in the last heat for Niels Müller didn't really help him out. Nerves, wood, saw blade, anything can play a role here. You have to have that flow, that clean stroke. Robert Ebner, final set of his saw here, clearing all of the rest of the stuff out of the way. Danny Marr is yet to get his saw set. This will be the first time Danny Marr is also on stand B. Okay. All right, last check by Jörg Kurzenberger on Danny Marr's stand. Robert Ebner is ready. As they would say in German, der Spannung steigt. The tension is mounting as the two top guys today are going head-to-head for the third time of the day.
Athletes, ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Danny Marr using spike shoes. Robert Ebner opting for normal trainers. Robert Ebner getting deep in the knee. Danny Marr doing the same. Danny Marr looking good, though. It looks like he might get through there first, and a time of 13:71. Oh, my goodness. And a 13:83 for Robert Ebner. How close is that? First and second in the overall, and first and third in single buck. So Danny Marr with a 13... Oh, excuse me. That's a bit of a 13:71 for Danny Marr. Lars Seibert had a 13:40. So Danny Marr second place in single buck. Robert Ebner in third place in single buck with a 13:83. Great battle between these two. Very, very close. And we'll get a look at the slow-mo here. Nice long strokes. Good start here by Robert Ebner. He took a quick two-stroke start and then got into those long strokes to try and get that saw really deep into the wood. I didn't see any unusual hookups from either of them. One quick stop at the end, I believe, for Robert Ebner, but nothing massive. And Robert Ebner grimacing at that wood again. You can see in the background Danny Marr battling hard. Really even battle here. Both of these guys just giving it everything. And there is that hookup from Robert Ebner that just cost him those little seconds that made the difference. Yeah, and again, you can see it from the front angle, and that's the difference maker right there as Danny Marr cut through that block just a hair ahead of Robert Ebner. And had Robert not gotten caught there, he probably would have won that heat. So Lars Seibert with the fastest time in single buck. Danny Marr, Robert Ebner in second and third places. And Niels Müller in fourth place. And all of those times really, really solid as we take a look at the overall standings. I mean, Danny Marr was still in third place before the single buck and now has a 5-point lead on Robert Ebner as we move towards the springboard. And it is a 10-point lead over Lars Seibert in third place, and it's these three guys battling for supremacy once again. All right, coming up next, we're going to have one of those disciplines that is, wow, all I can say is wow. The springboard is the next one coming up, and that's going to be one to keep an eye on because so many things play a role here. Unbelievable what you have to be able to do with the springboard in order to make this particular discipline work. And we just saw in the single buck just a fantastic effort from Lars Seibert, who had the fastest time and gets to 16 points. Danny Marr in second place with those 14 points, and Robert Ebner in third place place with the 12 points in the overall standings. Danny Marr, Robert Ebner, and Lars Seibert, 1, 2, and 3. So those two guys, or 3 guys rather, are going to be battling once again like they did in 2019 as we head towards the Springboard discipline.
Hängt jetzt vom Springboard ab, wie es da hängt, und wenn Danny mit Vorsprung in die Hotzo reingeht, dann glaube ich, ist da schon ganz ein Stück weit vorne.
Während der deutschen Meisterschaft ist natürlich auch schon wieder.
So we also should talk about the next German Championships, which is going to be coming up in 2021. It's planned for the 21st and 22nd of August of 2021 in Gelsenkirchen.
Sagen wir noch amateurhaft, sage ich mal. Es wurde dann immer mit jedem Jahr besser.
And this is an opportunity for these guys to battle each other once again.
Schnellere Beine gestellt hat im Prinzip. Wir haben jetzt ein neues Format im Prinzip, was es auch wieder noch spannender macht. Also es wird immer daran gearbeitet, dass
there will also be a small change in the format, and
dass wir also wirklich auch präsent immer sind.
Yeah, we'll see how that all comes together in 2021.
Wir haben Video-Judge hinten drin sitzen, also wo es auf die Hundertstel genau angeht. Man sieht es gerade jetzt in der Disziplin Singleback zum Beispiel, da geht es um 12 Hundertstel, 25 Hundertstel. Das kann man gar nicht mit dem Auge mehr groß sehen. Da kann schnell ein Fehler passieren, also wird es analysiert im Prinzip, damit es auch dann fair bleibt für alle Sportler. Und somit sind wir, glaube ich, schon, also wir müssen uns nicht, wir können uns auch mit anderen großen Sportlern schon messen, was die Professionalität angeht.
Das mit Sicherheit, und wir freuen uns natürlich jetzt schon auf die Deutsche Meisterschaft 2021, hoffentlich mit Zuschauerbeteiligung in Gelsenkirchen.
Just mentioning again, German Championships 2021, and yeah, he said hopefully with an audience, and let's take a look.
Ich hoffe, ihr seid dabei, 2021, Deutsche Meisterschaft.
Also ich bin ganz sicher mit dabei.
Well, I think that everybody is going to be hoping that we're going to be able to do the 2021 German Championships with an audience there, because that just makes such a huge difference for the vibe, and it's also a lot more exciting when you got a bunch of people in the stands screaming their heads off for these athletes. So, you know, of course, under the circumstances, we are forced to manage it in a different way here to be able to do it in 2020. But nevertheless, these guys are putting on a great show today, and I think that we can definitely say they're doing a good job, and I'm definitely enjoying the action I've seen so far. But that being said, we have one more event in round number 2 coming up, and that is a tough one. Springboard is up next.
Aber es war nah dran. Aber wir schauen mal auf das aktuelle Bracket, auf die Deutsche Meisterschaft 2020, die jetzt langsam aber sicher in die entscheidende Phase geht.
So taking a look at the action and the bracket from round number 2, single buck, we have our spot set. Lars Seibert with 16, Danny Marr with 14, and Robert Ebner with 12 with the overall. Danny Marr still with a solid lead of 5 points over Robert Ebner, but he's not so far ahead that he can just rest on his laurels. Robert Ebner is very good in the Springboard. Lars Seibert, sitting in 3rd place overall, has 39 points, so he's 10 points back from a top spot here, and that's going to mean he's going to need an absolute rocket ship of a run here in Springboard.
Und dann muss Robert schon den Schnitt auf alle Fälle gewinnen und Danny Zweiter werden. Da muss man gucken, wie die Gesamtzeiten liegen. Ob es dann noch passt, dann, wie gesagt, wird es echt spannend. Also.
Es ist spannend, es bleibt spannend.
So coming up in Springboard, our first 2 athletes will be Stefan Graf and Stefan Stark. But let's take a closer look at the Springboard.
Denn da zahlt es sich wirklich aus, einen genaueren Blick auf die Disziplin zu werfen.
Springboard. Springboard simulates the traditional way of felling trees, climbing up over thick roots. First, notches known as pockets are chopped into the log. 2 springboards are then anchored into these pockets. The athlete then climbs up to chop through a 27-centimeter thick block of wood in the fastest time possible.
Ja, jetzt wurden wir ein bisschen überrascht, aber das macht überhaupt nichts, denn wir kommen zur Startliste von Springboard, und die hat es in sich. In Heat 1 Steffen Graf gegen Stefan Stark. Heat 2 Matthias Thoma mit Stefan Odwarka. In Heat 3 sehen wir Lars Seibert und Nils Müller. Und in Heat 4 Robert Ebner und Danny Maar. Guido, dieses Duell, das wird uns
All right,
heute
so there you saw our start list
Male
for the Springboard. A couple of opportunities here for the top athletes, a couple of opportunities not really available for the guys at the bottom of the list. So Stefan Graf and Stefan Stark will be the first heat up. Personal best for both of these guys are above a minute. So Stefan Graf with a time of 1:13.15. Stefan Stark with a time of 1:10.66. Springboard, by the way, held the record for Springboard for Germany is held by Dirk Brown, is a time of 45. How many records does Dirk Brown hold here anyway? It's unbelievable. This guy holds the Springboard record of 45.60. Got that in 2007. He holds the record for single buck. He got this in 2014 with a time of 10:42. He holds the underhand chop record of 19.44. Got that in 2007. He also holds the world record for hot saw. Got that in 2016. I mean, he's the perfect partner for Marcus down there with that many records as a German champion. He is one of those guys that is going to go down as a legend in timber sports. But meanwhile, we are getting set for our first heat in Springboard. I really like this discipline. It's just incredible. You have so many things that play a role here. Your setting of the pocket, first of all. If you have a good 3 or 4 hit pocket, then you've got the distinct advantage of getting your board in quickly and getting it up there. You've got to get your board in a good position so that it's not sagging, so that you have a solid footing to take and set your next set of pockets. And the same situation on your upper board. You've got to have a solid footing so you can work the block on top. So many things play a role here, and let's not forget, you're 2 meters plus above the ground with a sharp axe in your hand trying to cut a tree down. It's a real tough one. Here we go.
Athletes, ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
So we see both of these guys have choked up quite far on their axes to try and get the most accurate set of pockets they can possibly get. All right, Stefan Stark already up on his first board with a nice 5-hit pocket on his side. Stefan Graf still working to get his first board in place, and I believe that was about 10 hits to get it set, but he's in a good position, solid board set now, and he starts setting his second pocket. So Stefan Stark now clearing out his pocket quickly. It was about a 7 or 8 hit pocket for Stefan Graf, and now both of these guys up to the top of the boards here. A little bit of uncertainty from Stefan Stark on the other side there. Stefan Graf, he is up above our position, and we are well above stage height here. I'm going to say at foot level, he's a good 2 meters plus up above the ground. That has got to be nerve-wracking for anybody, but holding a saw and having to chop the top of a block off, you got to have nerves of steel. Both the Stefans working hard on the top block here as we take a look from the overall picture, how far up they are. And the idea here is just to get through that first side of the block as far as you can so you don't have to dig as deep on the backside with that really crazy angle of the axe. Still working hard up at the top there. 3-minute time limit, by the way, for these gentlemen in the Springboard. If they go over the 3-minute time limit, it's considered not complete and is a DQ. All right, Stefan Stark now moving over to the backside of his block. 152 has passed for both of them. And Stefan Stark gets it down to 158.35, currently leading in Springboard from the top of that block. 206 has passed now for Stefan Graf. He should be able to get this down in a couple more hits. And that uncomfortable angle chopping from the backside, 214.47 for Stefan Graf. So there we go. Getting down gingerly with the axe for Stefan Stark, and Stefan Graf passes his axe off and gets down. So our first springboard is done, as we will take a look back here. And as I said, the optimal pocket setting is a 3-hit pocket. Difficult to get that under the best of circumstances. And a quick check there, as we see that was about a 10-hit pocket for Stefan Graf, and Stefan Stark was already on top of his first board, setting his second pocket. Once again, if you're just joining us on Twitch, we are into round number 2 of competition here at the STIHL Timbersports German Championships 2020. The event is Springboard, or rather the discipline is Springboard. And we have just had heat number 1 with Stefan Graf and Stefan Stark. Stefan Stark, with the faster time of the two here, takes over the lead. But there are still 3 more heats to go. So let's see. Danimar still on top. Stefan Stark moves into second place in the overall with 44 points, but I'm sure that will change as we get through competition here a little bit farther. Danimar in a very good position there with 49 points in the overall. Not far behind him is Robert Ebner with 44, tied right now with Stefan Stark after the Springboard Heat number 1.
Sportart notwendig ist. Und lieber Dirk, wir haben jetzt schon in dieser ersten Heat einiges gesehen und erlebt, was eine Analyse wert ist, oder?
Ja, wie ich schon gesagt habe, wenn man Springboard beherrschen will, muss man auch körperlich sehr fit sein. Und 2 Minuten mit einer 3 Kilo schweren Axt Holz zu hacken, ist dann schon sehr anstrengend. Also wenn man auch nicht eine Grundfitness hat, sage ich mal.
So Dirk just explaining that hammering away for 2.5 minutes or even 1.5 minutes with a 3 kilogram heavy axe is going to take its toll on even the most fit person. And then again, not forgetting that you're that far up off the ground that you always have to think about your own safety when you are up in the air by 2+ meters in order to be able to cut off the top block there. So all things playing a role and being equal here with the Springboard, you really do need to be absolutely fit and rely a lot on your technique in this discipline.
Zwischen 20 und 25 hast einen guten Aufstieg und dann klappt das auch mit der Minute.
Wenn du sagst, die Axt passt nicht zum Holz, was genau meinst du damit?
Ja, so wie es. Wir haben jetzt ja nicht nur ein Axtformat hier, sondern wir haben ja verschiedene Äxte, die anderen Hinterschliff haben zum Beispiel. Es gibt eine Full Banana zum Beispiel, die anders aussieht als diese jetzt hier. Das ist zum Beispiel eine Chisel-Axt jetzt hier, die wir jetzt hier haben. Die hat eine Chisel hier, das sieht man jetzt hier vielleicht. Und eine Full Banana.
So just talking about the different axes for the wood, and he says that not every axe passes or fits to every kind of wood. And the axes the guys have been using here is the kind of a chisel axe, and the other version is a so-called banana axe. And you can see the chisel axe, he mentioned that the angle there is a little bit more pronounced than on the banana axe, and the banana axe will have a bigger head on it as well.
Wenn man die Schnitte nicht übereinander legt, bleibt Holz drin hängen zum Beispiel, es chippt nichts raus. Also man muss da schon sehr präzise arbeiten. Und wie ich schon sagte, nach 2 Minuten am Springboard tut es jedem weh. Und auch den Top-Athleten, sage ich mal, die jetzt auch Weltrekorde haben oder Deutschrekorde haben, ab 1,30 wird es dann schon schwer mit der Axt dann Holz zu hacken, weil dann alles blau wird und die Arme wehtun. Und
ja, dann wünschen wir den nächsten Athleten, dass die Axt zum Holz passt. Guido, weiter geht's mit dem nächsten Heat.
So Matthias Thoma up next against Stefan Odwarka. Matthias Thoma, his personal best is 119.38. Personal best for Stefan Odwarka is 127.38. It'll be interesting to see if any of these times can really come together for these guys. We've seen with Stefan Stark already and Stefan Graf that their times, they went well past their personal best times. So a lot of things play a role here. Elevation, of all things, the axe, as Dirk was just mentioning earlier on. We're also talking about the wood itself. It plays a role if the wood is very moist or soft, if the wood is hard and slabs more easily. There are a lot of things that play a role here. So we'll see what kind of a situation we have with Matthias Thoma. And we also talked about those 3-hit or 4-hit or 5-hit pockets to get that springboard in quicker and get up a little bit faster, so that gives you an opportunity to work more on the top block and sooner.
Den kannst du auch nicht erzwingen, sondern den musst du dir erarbeiten. Und das ist beim Springboard auch so, dass du flüssig bleibst im Prinzip, dass du wirklich flüssig arbeitest und im Prinzip das nicht unrund wird. Also ich sag, man muss wirklich das Pocket machen, 1, 2, 3, 4, Bob rauf, Brett rein, rausspringen.
All right, just had to make a quick change here on stage because one of the stands was not correct, but they've done a great job to get it up there and get it done quickly. And we are almost ready for the second heat in Springboard between Matthias Thoma and Stefan Ottwarka.
Tausende von Pockets geschlagen, bis ich das wirklich drauf hatte und ja, und auch diesen Fluss im Prinzip drauf hatte. Also mein bester Aufstieg war 19 Sekunden. Bis ich den ersten Schlag oben gemacht hatte. Das war dann 4 Schläge unten, 4 Schläge oben, aufs Brett drauf. Erster Schlag war 19 Sekunden. Aber die Top-Leute wiederum, wie jetzt ein Sterling Hart zum Beispiel oder auch ein Mitch Hewitt zum Beispiel, die machen das teilweise in 16, 17 Sekunden. Und dann bist du schon schnell und denkst, wo holen die jetzt noch die Zeit? Dann guckst du dir die Videos an, denkst, da ist ein bisschen, da ein bisschen was drin. Also man muss dann schon analysieren ein bisschen. Immer schön gucken, was andere machen, die besser sind. Es gibt immer bessere und dann gucken, ob die weniger ist. Oder es gibt jemanden, der vielleicht besonders gut Springboard hat, weil nicht der schnellste ist, aber vielleicht einen guten Aufstieg macht. Was macht er da? Was macht er anders als ich? Und das muss man reinbringen und dann das ganze Paket zusammenpacken und dann klappt das im Prinzip dann auch mit dem Springboard unter einer Minute.
Ja, ob das dann tatsächlich unter einer Minute klappt, das werden wir in wenigen Sekunden sehen. Die nächste Heat ist ready. Guido.
Alrighty then, now moving on to our next set of athletes coming out here as the stage stand seems to be ready to go. And there is Matthias Thoma getting ready to come out for Springboard now. This should be a solid discipline for him. As far as weight is concerned, he is a slighter athlete. That means he's going to have the advantage of getting up on the board and not having to worry about whether that board is bowing so badly. Stefan Ottwarka, also a similar situation for him. Although he is a taller athlete, he might have the advantage once he gets up onto the top. But the main thing is making sure you set those springboards in position as best and as quickly as possible. So the stability rod needs to also be put in place there to make sure that tree that they're doing their work on does not move at all. You can see specially built stands where the log is set into, held in place with massive bolts into the floor system as well as held in place onto the stand itself by a weighted base and some mechanically cinched chains, and then that stability rod just as one last bit of safety. Matthias Thoma right in front of our position here. Last checks. So looking for a quick pocket cut and board set to get things going here.
Stand to
Here we
your
are.
timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
All right, it looks like a 4-hit pocket for Matthias Thoma as he gets that first board in place. Looks solid as he starts to work on the second pocket here. And Stefan Ottwarka, has a problem with the positioning of his board. Needs to get that flat section of his pocket reset. And Matthias Thoma with a definite advantage here as he gets his second board already in position. Is it safe and solid? It looks like it is as he gets up there. And now he'll get a chance to start working on that top board. Stefan Ottwarka, his board sagging a little bit, but seems like it's in position as he tries to set that second pocket as quickly as possible. Distinct advantage now on the top for Matthias Thoma, who is right in front of us, hammering away on the top block. Stefan Ottwarka struggling to get that second pocket set. He is in for a good 10 hits already and hasn't got his second board up yet. Matthias Thoma now really working on that side, that first side, looking comfortable on the block up top, getting deep into it. Stefan Ottwarka trying to find that pocket. Remember, 3 minutes is the time frame that they have to get set up there. Now Matthias Thoma starting to work on the backside. A little bit of an uncomfortable situation because you can't just switch around as easily to the other side of the log. You have to actually cut with an odd angle there. And now Matthias Thoma is well in the lead as Stefan Ottwarka has finally gotten up on top and starts to work his block on the first side. But I think this one's going to go to Matthias Thoma, no problem there, as he drops the block down in a time of 1:42.10 for 4th place in the overall standings and 1st in Springboard. Stefano Dvorka still working on the backside as he nears the 2-minute mark. He's got time to get it through, and it's important that he does not get a DQ here because he wants the points definitely to keep him in the mix. Matthias Thoma giving him some encouragement from his stand on stand A. And Stefano Dvorka still working as he passes the 2-minute 10-second mark here. He's going to want to get over to the other side as quickly as possible to try and start getting that block cut from the backside and knock it off the top. He's gone deep on the front side, so it shouldn't take him too much longer. Little skip of the axe there. A few more hits, and that should do it for Stefano Dvorka. Yep, there we go. Unfortunately, he did exceed the time limit, so it's a DQ for him. That is just too bad for Stefano Dvorka, but Matthias Thoma with a solid time of 1:42.10. So that now has just been adjusted to 1:41.77. And Matthias Thoma with the fastest time so far in Springboard, just ahead of Stefan Stark and Stefan Graf. And Stefan Stark and Matthias Thoma are the only two who have been under the 2-minute mark so far. Stefan Stark coming very close to it, and Matthias Thoma with a 1:41.77. In the overall rankings, that puts Matthias Thoma in 4th place and Stefano Dvorka down in 8th place at the moment. Remember, only the top 6 athletes will go to the hot saw. Taking a look there, those first pocket by Matthias Thoma was set very quickly. I'm going to say 4, maybe 5 hits maximum, and then he set that second pocket in pretty quick time as well and managed to get up top and just start working that top block. Springboard, like I said earlier, the record for Springboard is 45.60 seconds, achieved by Dirk Braun in 2007. That's the German record. The Springboard world record still held by Sterling Hart. Got it in Stuttgart in 2016 with a 35.67 seconds. Hard to imagine that, but it was a very fast time. So Matthias Thoma with the #1 time in Springboard so far, and that puts him in 4th place in the overall, behind Stefan Stark, Robert Ebner, and Danny Marr in the top 4 of the overall standings. But we still do have 2 more heats to go with Lars Seibert, Nils Müller, Robert Ebner, and Danny Marr still to go in Springboard.
Da kannst du gerne nachfragen. Das haben wir sehr detailliert schon besprochen hier im Studio. Dirk hat das eine oder andere gesehen, was man hier hätte besser machen können.
Ja, aber schön, wenn wir die Bilder nochmal dazu hätten. Im Prinzip hat Stefan unten das Pocket schon fertig gehabt. Hat
nämlich richtig schön fertig, ne?
Es war eigentlich gut fertig, hat gute Winkel auch gehakt auf dem Pocket. Dann hat er einen kleinen Chip drin liegen gehabt, den hätte er mit der Hand nur noch rausreiben brauchen. Hat die Achse oben schon platziert gehabt, das Brett reingeschoben und er hat den Chip dann mit hinten ins Pocket reingeschoben und dann greift die Nase, die an dem Pocket dran ist, greift da nicht ins Holz rein, es rutscht runter, also wird wieder rausgenommen, Achse wieder runter, bleibt Zeit liegen. Dann entsteht das Kopfkino auch, so eine Scheiße, anderes jetzt schneller. Und dann ging das zweite Pocket auch nicht daneben. Kann man jetzt sehen zum Beispiel. Anne ist am Springboard ein guter Sportler, wirklich gut. Wenn wir gleich vielleicht die Nahaufnahme noch haben vom Pocket, jetzt sieht man es nicht ganz so gut. Jetzt sieht man es, jetzt ist es eigentlich fertig, es bleibt der Chip drin liegen gleich. Der bleibt jetzt liegen, der Chip. Sieht es ganz genau. Jetzt hätte er nur mit der Hand eben rauswischen müssen. Das Pocket sieht eigentlich ganz gut aus. Schiebt den Chip jetzt im Prinzip mit ins Pocket wieder rein. Sieht man jetzt. Und dann hält es nicht. Ja, jetzt nimmt er die Achse wieder runter. Jetzt bleibt die Zeit liegen. Meistens fällt aber noch das Springboard noch hin. Haut nochmal rein. Trifft nicht sauber. So, jetzt ist es fertig eigentlich. Hätte er auch reinstecken können. Es war eigentlich fertig. Hat echt viel Zeit liegen lassen jetzt da. Ja, und dann geht natürlich das im zweiten Pocket genauso weiter. Hat er auch schlecht getroffen, das zweite Pocket und dann hat er oben empfiehlt einfach an die Kraft dann. Ja, obwohl er den Block oben gut geschlagen hat, weil er hat noch sehr viel Zeit rausgeholt. Er war weit hinten und hat den Block gut geschnitten noch. Das war das Vorteilhafte daran vielleicht.
Ja, und,
aber trotzdem die Q wegen Time Limit.
das ist leider das Time-Limit
Das ist bei 2:30.
und das tut dann natürlich doppelt weh.
Genau.
Wir zeigen jetzt ein paar bunte Bilder in eigener Sache. Ich wünsche gute Unterhaltung.
I'll take you away to where the sun shines so bright, so bright. You can stare at the stars at night. You can tell me anything you like. I'll take you away to where the sun shines so bright, so bright. You can stare at the stars at night. You can tell me anything you like.
Ready for any challenge. Cordless power made by STIHL. Only from approved STIHL dealers.
Da sind wir bei uns im Studio und es gibt so viel zu bereden beim Springboard. Also wir haben in diesen Pausen ja wirklich extrem viele Sachen gesehen. Matthias.
Ja, Matthias hat im Prinzip eine gute Leistung abgerufen. Man kann jetzt hier sehen, was ihm beim Training fehlt. Das Gewicht zum Beispiel kommt beim Springboard wieder zum Vorteil. Er ist sehr ausdauerstark, sage ich mal, sehr zäh und hat ein gutes Springboard gemacht. Durchschnittlich zwar, aber war ein gutes Springboard, hat gute Punkte gemacht. Und ich denke, das ist er mit zufrieden.
Hat er, glaube ich, sehr entspannt, sehr cool gemacht. Das, was natürlich immer wieder ein Thema ist, weil viele gefragt haben, wann sind denn jetzt die nächsten Events, die upcoming Events. Wir zeigen sie euch natürlich sehr, sehr gerne. Noch einmal, es wird ein ereignisreicher
So,
Herbst.
just some of the upcoming competitions for 2020, the German Championships we're currently living in right now. 20th of September, we have the Six Nations Rookie Cup and the Four Nations Cup. This is going to also be live streamed from Munich, Germany here. 26th of September, we'll have the International Rookie Cup and the Czech National Championships from the Czech Republic. And then 3rd of October, the Benelux Championships from Netherlands. And then 8th of October, the European Trophy in Munich here, live stream from the Bavaria studios. And then 29th of November, the individual World Championships also live streamed here direct from Munich, Germany. So for updates and the full schedule, you can visit STIHLTimbersports.com for more information, updates, and of course athlete profiles. And you can also check out all the different records that are available online for the different nations and for the world records there too. And of course, if you want to get into the conversation, hashtag STIHL Timbersports and post some pictures, make some comments, and just stay up to date with us in general.
Verwenden. Eins meiner Lieblings-Hashtags übrigens ist Kiss My Ex. Hashtag STIHL Timbersports ist aber das einfachste und gängigste und wir freuen uns über alle Einsendungen.
Ja, ganz genau. Also für uns ist auch wichtig, die Fangemeinde auch aufzubauen, sprich über Social Media. Alle Sportler sind mittlerweile auf Social Media tätig. Die meisten, ich nicht so der Profi drin bin, aber die Jüngeren, ich glaube, das ist nicht so mein Ding, glaube ich. Und die Jüngeren, die machen das ganz gut, glaube ich. Posten hier gerade gute Videos, auch lustige Videos. Nicht nur
All right, Springboard heats 3 and 4 coming up shortly. In heat number 3, we'll see Lars Seibert and Nils Müller battling against each other. Then in heat number 4, once again, Robert Ebner and Danny Marr will be head-to-head against each other. These two seem to be on a collision course for the overall today. Will that in fact be the case? We'll have to stay tuned to find out. Danny Marr and Robert Ebner, having not done the Springboard yet, are still in positions 1 and 2 in the overall standings with 49 and 44 points respectively. Stefan Stark moves into 3rd place with a good time in Springboard, but I don't know how long he'll stay there because of the way that it's going to happen next with Lars Seibert and Nils Müller. Coming out there is Lars Seibert getting ready to join us on stage. Nils Müller will come immediately after him. Of course, we are observing the social distancing rules that have been set out in order for us to be able to do this event here. No audience, which is a bit of a shame for the athletes out there. But you know what? These guys have delivered a great show so far. Fantastic efforts on all parts. And audience or not, the excitement is definitely in the air that Timbersports is back in the mix. So Lars Seibert, personal best 1:15.37. Niels Müller, a personal best in Springboard of 1:33.77. But as we've seen, personal bests don't necessarily guarantee a high score or a win here. And these guys will be battling hard to manage as fast a time as possible. I like Lars. His springboards are very, very nice. Matches his uniform to a T. The green and black accents. It's bad to the bone, man. Couple of practice swings by Lars to try and make sure that he has the quickest pocket setup possible. That axe of his shining in the lights from the studio here. Niels Müller has an issue with the placement of the support rod that they've put in, so they'll bring that out and replace it around the other side because it was right where he wants to stand for setting his first pocket. Not optimal, but it's a quick fix by the stage crew here, who are among the most professional switch crews ever. And this is another thing that we also like to see during the World Championships and the Champions Trophy is there as actually competition between the two stage crews, so that's also a fun aspect of the big events. All right, here we go.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
In sync with each other, these two guys are. All right, Niels Müller set his pocket very quickly. I'm going to say that was maximum 5 hits. Lars Seibert still struggling to get that first pocket in a good way, and it looks like he's finally got it set. He's going to sweep out the stuff that's in there, and I think he's overthinking that pocket a bit too much. Niels Müller on the other side. Looks like one more hit for him to get that pocket finally set, and he'll put his board in. Now Lars Seibert up on his first board. Looks stable as he sets his second pocket now. And this could be an opportunity for him to actually catch up with Niels Müller. Niels getting his board in place. Quick test to make sure it's solid. And Lars Seibert gets his second board in place. Not satisfied with it as he tries to set it 2-3 times. And now finally he gets up onto that board. Oh, but it looks like it's sagging a little bit. Hopefully that thing will hold steady for him as he has gone down below that mark. And that board looks like it might be slipping a little bit for Lars Seibert. Niels Müller, meanwhile, on the top, working hard to get that block going. He's got the advantage at the moment. Lars Seibert's board moves down more and more. And it is really sagging. Niels Müller getting deep on the backside of his block now. Lars has done a good job to catch up. Could it be that he manages to actually take over? Niels Müller on top. He's got a deep cut. Lars Seibert has now moved over to the other side. Interesting turn of events here as Lars Seibert has now moved over to the other side of his block. Niels Müller still trying to get through. Lars Seibert does it in 1:51.95 to take the lead after taking a long time to get up there. But he's beat Niels Müller in this heat here with a 1:59.76 now for Niels Müller. Wow. I was getting worried for Lars because that board looked like it was sagging a bit, and man, oh man, he managed to do a great job just kicking it on the top block there to take this heat down from behind. Unbelievable battle for both of these gentlemen here as we saw them going from top to bottom. Niels Müller with the faster pocket sets, but Lars was quicker when it came to getting the board or the block cut at the top. So we see in the replay, Lars there, just a quick sweep of the pocket with his hand to make sure that everything's out of there. I think he just overthought that pocket a bit too much. Meanwhile, here, a picture of Niels Müller. He had two really good pocket sets there as he took a couple of good hits to try and get that second pocket set up. And again, you've got to remember, this is called the springboard for a reason, because that board underneath your feet is actually moving around as you take swings to do anything when you're standing on it. And Niels Müller's first set of pockets was definitely better than the second one here. I think he had a 5-hit, maybe a 6-hit pocket in his first one. The second pocket wasn't quite so optimal. And then you could see here that board under Lars Seibert just started to sag under the weight of the big man. But he used that advantage of his weight and his power to just really worked that top block so well, manages to come from behind and actually won that heat between the two of them. A better board for Niels Müller, but Lars Seibert just a little bit faster on the top block. And here we see concentration from Lars with that final blow to get it down. So Lars Seibert, second fastest time in Springboard with a 151.63, 9 seconds off the pace of Matthias Thoma. But 14 points for him with one more heat to go with Robert Ebner and Danny Marr. And for the overall standings, that means Lars Seibert now moves into the top spot with 53 points. Danny Marr, 49 points, still holding on to second. Niels Müller in third place with 45 and Robert Ebner with 44. So among second, third, and fourth place, the scores are very, very close. But Danny Marr and Robert Ebner are still to do the springboard. So some points will be collected by those two gentlemen unless we have a DQ on both of their parts. It's going to be a very good battle.
Jetzt haben wir zweimal 120 Kilo tanzen gesehen auf dem Springboard. Das,
ja, es gibt Beispiele, die auch mit 120 Kilogramm gutes Springboard machen können. Beste Beispiel ist Braden Meyer, der Australier, der vor 2 Jahren, glaube ich, bei der WM in 38 Sekunden Springboard gemacht hat. Und der sprang da auch auf wie ein Eichhörnchen und hat sich bewegt wie eine Gazelle. Also es ist schon machbar. Jetzt haben die Jungs einfach hier und da ihre Fehler gemacht. Gerade bei den Pockets, das A und O ist, Lars hat ohne Pocket eigentlich schon fertig. Es war tief genug drin, da kann nichts mehr passieren. Da kannst du das Brett reinstecken einfach und kannst raufgehen. Also da kannst du das zweite Pocket machen. Unten, sage ich mal, kann man ein bisschen mehr riskieren als oben, weil oben brauche ich einfach viel mehr Zeit, um den Block zu bearbeiten. Aber wenn ich unten eben für 5 oder 6 Schläge, sage ich mal, mich draufstellen kann, hält das Brett normalerweise immer. Oben muss ich einfach präzise und sauber arbeiten, dass ich gut stehen kann, damit ich auch wirklich Kraft auf die Axt bringe. Wenn das Brett negativ steht, sage ich mal, also unterhalb von 90 Grad, dann hat man einfach nicht mehr die Kraft und nicht das Vertrauen. Man hat es beim Nils gesehen, er hat nicht so wirklich Vertrauen in seinem Pocket gehabt, er hat sehr mittig gestanden. Und weil er mittig gestanden hat, kommt natürlich auch kein Winkel auf die Axt drauf, er muss alles aus dem Handgelenk arbeiten. Du hast keinen Tiefgang im Holz drin, das potenziert sich alles nach hinten raus und dann kommt da eben eine relativ schlechte Zeit zustande. Also auch der Nils hat schon ein Springboard unter 1,30 gemacht, sage ich mal. Und das kann er auch, er hat die Kraft dafür, aber wie gesagt, nach 2 Minuten geht jedem die Kraft aus. Da muss man sich nichts vormachen. Ich habe es letztes Jahr in Oberhof erlebt, wo ich auch kurz vorm DQ stand nach 2,25 und war ich genauso fertig. Und wenn dann eben auch dann, beim Lars hat man gesehen, die Axt hat sehr gut geschnitten. Hat also mit wenig Krafteinsatz, hat die trotzdem sehr viel ins Holz reingearbeitet. Gerade beim Pocket konnte man es ganz gut sehen. Beim Nils konnte man sehen, beim zweiten Pocket, dass die Axt nicht so gut schnitt und nicht so tief reinging, was natürlich auch wieder im Kopf was verursacht, weil du weißt, ey, scheiße, die Axt geht nicht gut hier.
All right, so stage is almost ready for the final heat in Springboard between Robert Ebner and Danny Marr. And we're just hearing in the background how Dirk is detailing a little bit about the things that he saw in that last heat between Lars Seibert and Niels Müller, and how the angle of the board requires a lot more power when you're up there that high in the air. You can risk a little bit on the lower board, but you want to have a really good, solid position on the upper board so that you can spend more of your energy on the block and not necessarily on holding your position in the board. So, and then it comes to a point where you're playing the angle with your wrists and not using your body in order to get the angle and really putting in the effort using your hips and getting the top block cut off properly. So, yeah, it's an interesting thing. We talk about all of the different aspects of what you need to do. You have to be technically proficient. You have to be, of course, strong. You have to have that endurance because now, I thought the 3-minute was the time limit here, but it's actually 2.5 minutes. And once you get to the 2.5 and 2:35, then you're automatically disqualified. So it's a really important aspect to have all of these things come together. And like we said, you know, Springboard is the one discipline where everything plays a role. It's discipline. It's your fitness, and it's also your technical ability with the axe, being able to really guide it to set those pockets properly and make sure that you get your pockets set as quickly and as efficiently as possible, but also so that it's stable enough for you to get up and do the work you need to do up top. So both Robert Ebner and Danny Marr have very respectable times in the Springboard. Robert Ebner, distinct advantage here. He's got a personal best of 48.4 or 58 seconds, whereas Danny Marr, his personal best is 104.87. Now, it doesn't sound like it's all that much difference, but when we're talking about a competition of millimeters and milliseconds, it makes all the difference in the world. So in this case, I would say advantage Ebner. Will he be able to hold on to that advantage as we get into this Springboard, the final battle here in round number 2? And again, pocket placement, board placement, very, very, very critical. And as Dirk mentioned earlier on, you can risk a little bit with the first board, but you want to make sure that second board doesn't go below the 90-degree mark so that you can spend your energy on the block and not on standing. Here we go.
3, 2, 1, go!
All right, Robert Ebner, good solid first board. Mega angle there as he did exactly what Dirk was mentioning, risked on the first one. Danny Marr now moved up to his second pocket. These guys looking pretty evenly matched so far. But, it's not about that at this point. And only 3 points separate these two guys. Lars Seibert in third place with 49, so he is a little bit off pace. And I do believe that we are going to see a monumental hot saw battle between Danny Marr and Robert Ebner. Now, Danny Marr, very, very, very strong in hot saw. Robert Ebner, no slouch, but he has said it's a love-hate relationship with him and the hot saw. Same thing that we had with Sterling Hart when I spoke with him about the hot saw discipline as well.
Es spielt gleich Rambazamba und wir wollen natürlich von Dirk wissen, wie dieses große Finale in all seinen Varianten und Möglichkeiten jetzt aus deiner Sicht gestaltet werden wird.
Ja, also ich denke jetzt, was Springboard betrifft zum Beispiel, wusste Danny jetzt, wie die Zeiten waren. Er kann sich einordnen und er wusste jetzt, unter 1,30 hacke ich immer, auch wenn ich ein schlechtes Pocket mache. Und beim Robert war es auch so, er wusste, hier kann ich gute Punktzahl machen. In der Regel ist er besser als Danny im Springboard. Aber es war jetzt schon knapp. Aufstieg war Danny ein bisschen langsamer. Aber Robert arbeitet eben oben auch am Block sehr gut. Und ich finde, Danny hat es auch gut gemacht, hat eine gute Axt. Es hat gut funktioniert, alles, was er gemacht hat. Und es ist eigentlich so, wie ich es erwartet habe. 10 Sekunden Abstand ist zwar ein bisschen viel, aber es ist so, wie ich es mir gedacht habe. Wie gesagt, Robert ist da mit Springboard einfach eine Bank. Ist sehr gut, ist sehr schnell mit den Pockets auch, guter Aufstieg.
All right, so talking about the Springboard a little bit more, it was a very good set of pockets for Robert Ebner, who got up quickly. Danny Marr was right there with him. These two guys, we have seen it as it was all day long. They've been battling with each other to try and take the top spot in the overall standings. At the moment, Danny Marr is still in the lead, but by only 3 points. Danny with 63 points, Robert Ebner with 60 points. And now it is going to come down to the ultimate last discipline, and that is the hot saw. Now, in hot saw, we will have the competitors as individuals out on stage. What that means is that they will come out on stage with the saw. They will have to cut 3 discs from the block, and then their time will be calculated and added on to the overall time. And then, of course, the fastest time will determine who the winner is. As we take a look at the springboard here, now Danny Marr definitely had the better springboard position. As you see that Robert Ebner's board is sagging a little bit, but Robert Ebner cut a little bit deeper on his first side as he's got a little bit more frequency with the hits on the with his axe on that top block.
Unsere Achswand testen und das Holz testen, sage ich mal. Was können wir jetzt für eine
Yeah,
Axt nehmen?
and you could see really nice there by Robert Ebner as he moves over to the other side much earlier than Danny Marr does. Danny Marr trying just to find the good wood, and Robert Ebner did it, managed to get that cut through nice and clean. Danny Marr finally getting through to the other side, and yeah, it was a good battle right up to that point, and Danny Marr was just a little bit slower than Robert Ebner, as you could see head to head. Both of them were not bad at all, but Robert just slightly better on today's action.
Ja, und jetzt ist es so, all comes down to the hot saw. Jetzt wird es nochmal richtig heiß im wahrsten Sinne des Wortes. Das ist ja eine Disziplin, wo du gar nicht mal so schlecht warst, ne?
War ich noch ganz gut drin, ganz genau.
Yep, talking about discipline coming up is the hot saw. In actual fact, Dirk Brown, who is the current world record holder in hot saw with a time of 5.20 seconds. He did, in fact, get that in 2016 at the German Championships.
Get set!
Für Dirk Braun, neue persönliche Bestzeit. Und wenn das freigegeben wird, dann ist es auch ein neuer Weltrekord. Ich flippe aus, aber wir warten erst mal ab.
Sensationelle Szenen.
A big celebration by Dirk Brown as he achieved the world record in 2016 with the hot saw. This is a discipline that is so finicky. So many things can go right, but then so many things can go wrong. And at that time, Dirk Brown just had everything go right for him. 5.20 is the current world record. That was achieved at the 2016 German Championships. Now, could it get broken today? Very possibly. Danny Marr is very, very strong in this discipline. Let's see how this breaks down. And these are a big, big deal. These machines are massively powerful machines. They're very, very loud. For any gas heads out there, this is absolutely your discipline. There's no two ways about it. The chain itself can move at up to 200 kilometers an hour or more. It will tear through a block like a hot knife through butter. The problem is that, like I said, it can be very finicky. These saws, sometimes they don't start. Sometimes, as we've seen at the World Championships a few years ago, the chain skips off the blade and you have to reset it. And when something like that happens, it just destroys your time. So, yeah, there's a lot of things that can go wrong with the hot saw. Let's take a look at the make or break discipline.
Looking at the individual competition, most of the time, it's the hot saw that makes the difference.
Yeah, probably the most important event, but yeah, also the most frustrating.
These saws are so incredibly powerful and dangerous.
Usually the hot saw is the slider.
Stand to your timber.
Hot saw, hot saw. I can't describe to you when we're out there under pressure.
Saw starts well, first disc looks solid. The cut is good.
You know, you're always ending the competition on a hot saw, so you know where you're going to be at when you finish. So you're either at a real big high or just is what it is.
Nice clean cuts, easy and relaxed.
Der Hot Saw ist für mich die geilste Disziplin der Welt.
5, 6, 8, Robert Ebner, 3 on the deck.
Once the competition comes, anything can happen. Oh no, a false start by Sterling Hart. What a disaster.
Yeah, it was a disappointment for me. Happens though, it's part of competing.
I saw there's 3 good discs there, but then let that nose come right up underneath the crossover line.
Fortunately, a disqualification.
It all relies on the hot saw.
If you have bad luck or if you did wrong, it's sport. Just,
oh my goodness. What an absolute disaster. The chain came off.
I was not disappointed because everybody see that I can be with the guys in front.
Yeah, it's the make or break event, you know.
I think you love and you hate it.
Try to make 3 good cuts and no disqualification.
The hot saw is where it's all one, so that's the best event.
So, jetzt heißt es doch mal tief durchatmen, bevor es in die letzte und alles entscheidende Runde geht. Wir sehen noch einen ganz kurzen Clip und dann geht's auch schon los.
Am Anfang braucht es Mut. Am Ende empfindest du Glück. Deine Zeit ist jetzt. THW.
Sind wir auch schon bereit für
All right,
das
in hot saw,
letzte
18
Bracket.
points
Jetzt,
can be won if you've got the fastest time. We also have the hot seat on stage, so this will give us a direct view of who is in the lead and who gets eliminated from competition here. Now, round 3, we see 6 athletes moving on. No more head-to-head battles. This is all about the time. You're alone on stage with the block and with your saw. It is all about getting a clean start with that saw, making sure that thing gets running, making sure it stays running, and making sure that you don't make any mistakes with that saw while you're having your cuts done. Now you have to cut 3 clean cookies. That means 3 on the deck. And yeah, with that huge motor running, the centrifugal force, the movement of the blade, the movement of the pistons inside the saw itself, everything comes to play in this particular discipline. And you know, one small mistake, you cut through a block or a cookie, you don't have complete cookies, you cut over the line, anything can happen here. Boy, it is the ultimate discipline, and we're going to see that shortly here. So Danny Marr, he's very good with the hot saw. You saw Robert Ebner, he mentioned, yeah, he loves that discipline. I don't know if that's 100% honest, but you know, you got to be able to take for what you get. And the hot saw is the discipline that's going to decide the overall here today.
Hier kommt Hot Saw.
Hot saw. For the hot saw, power saws are called into action, and the athletes have a space of 15 centimeters to cut 3 complete discs off a 46 centimeter thick wooden block. Jumping the start or cutting over the line will result in a disqualification. These custom, handmade, race-tuned machines are built for maximum power and precision and to cut the wood as fast as possible in a competition. They are built with a 60 to 80 horsepower single-cylinder 2-stroke engine, often taken from a snowmobile or high-powered motorbike. The hot saw can weigh up to 30 kilograms and its chain rotates at over 250 kilometers an hour. The cost of a competition hot saw used in STIHL Timbersports is upward of 6,000 euros.
Ja, der liebe Guido hat das so ein bisschen als die Formel-1-Disziplin skizziert. Dirk, wie kann man sich das vorstellen? Was steckt da für ein Motor drin? Da gibt es ja auch wieder verschiedene Varianten. Und wie schwer wäre so ein Teil für einen Normalverbraucher zu bedienen?
Also wir haben jetzt hier im Prinzip einen Motor, der aus dem Rennsport kommt, aus dem Crosssport oder aus dem Go-Kart-Sport im Prinzip, die hochgetunt sind, wirklich nur für, also als Rennmotor deklariert werden auch und so auch verkauft werden. Und die werden dann eben speziell umgebaut. Im Prinzip ist eben kein Getriebe mehr dran, keine Kühlung mehr dran, sondern es muss ja leicht bleiben und so. Und wenn die Hot Saw fertig ist, sage ich mal, steht sie mit ungefähr 28 bis 30 Kilo da, wenn sie getankt ist. Wir haben keinen gekühlten Motor. Jetzt bei dem Hubkolbenmotor zum Beispiel ist es so, das sind die Standard-Hot Saws mit der Rotax. Von Rotax zum Beispiel ist ein Hubkolbenmotor, wo also ein Kolben rauf und runter geht im Prinzip. Dort ist die Kühlung so aufgebaut, dass man im Prinzip das doppelwandige Gehäuse mit Öl kühlt und dann durch den Druck, der von außen steht, mit dem Schlauch im Prinzip das Öl runtergedrückt wird auf die Kette drauf. Und beim Wankelmotor ist so, dass es ein Kreiskolbenmotor ist, der auch noch eine Kühlung hat, der anders aufgebaut ist, aber viel weniger Vibration hat als ein Hubkolbenmotor.
Okay, das ist dann also schlussendlich die Entscheidung, die jeder selbst treffen muss,
Ganz genau.
wofür er sich entscheidet. Ne?
Richtig, genau. Also ich präferiere im Prinzip immer den Hubkolbenmotor, weil ich den seit Jahren schon fahre. Robert steht eben und Lars mehr auf den Wankelmotor. Wankelmotor ist natürlich ein mega geiler Sound, wie ein Formel-1-Auto hört sich der wirklich an. Also wirklich vom Sound, da ist es schon wirklich geil, so ein Hotsaw. Auch der Wankelmotor. Aber wie gesagt, ich bin jetzt auf dem Hubkolbenmotor, auf dem Rotachsmotor und bin damit auch am besten gefahren bis jetzt. Ich habe im Prinzip das ganze Setup auf mich umgebaut, sage ich mal. Und im Prinzip, dass der Motor, muss ja auch passen, Motor, Maschine, Kette, das muss alles auch zum Sportler ein bisschen passen. Man muss das Ganze zusammenbringen im Prinzip, dass es eine Symbiose entsteht, wo der Sportler wirklich dann auch ganz einfach mitarbeiten kann. Also es bringt nichts, wenn du die Motorsäge nicht, wenn du die Hotsaw nicht angezogen bekommst, ja, zum Beispiel. Also es muss alles einfach sein und trotzdem noch Power da sein. Und dementsprechend modifiziert man die ganzen Hotsaws im Prinzip. Robert arbeitet mit Jörg Lesi zusammen, das ist ein Stilmitarbeiter, der den Wankelmotor im Prinzip präferiert und ihn auch nach vorne gebracht hat und hat auch schon sehr gute Zeiten damit geschnitten und ist trotzdem noch ein bisschen anfällig. Man hat es letztes Jahr beim Amarok Cup gesehen, dass Robert im Prinzip dann die Säge nicht anbekommen hat. Das kann schon mal passieren, ist aber auch schon mit dem Hubkolbenmotor, mit dem Rotachsmotor auch passiert, dass die Säge nicht anspringt. Das ist einfach, es kann so viel passieren bei der Hotsaw. Und deswegen es entscheidet immer alles.
Aber wenn wir von dem Tuning doch einmal sprechen, da geht es ja jetzt dann nicht nur um den Motor, sondern auch um die Ausgewogenheit,
Genau.
um die Teile, wie du sie greifen kannst und so weiter.
Also schon das Handling ist schon ganz wichtig. Wie gesagt, du musst die Säge anheben können, die darf nicht nach vorne, hinten kippen und so. Und da musst du es im Prinzip auch so einstellen, dass der Motor raufkommt, ohne sich groß zu bewegen. Weil viele fahren zum Beispiel mit Halbgas los und machen die Säge an, sie geht in Halbgas los, dann schwingt das Schwert nach oben, was nach entgegen. Du musst sie erst suchen, die Säge, und musst erst einsortieren. Ich habe sie einfach ein bisschen mehr auf dem Standgas höher stehen und bringe sie im Prinzip mit 4000 Umdrehungen ins Holz rein. Und dann habe ich sie aber sauber hoch. Man sieht es gleich beim Danny zum Beispiel, der hat die Hotsaw ähnlich aufgebaut.
All right, looking down from my position here on high, our first saw is out on stage. This is the saw that belongs to Matthias Thoma. He will be our first athlete today coming out there. Final preparations, log marking, block marking, everything is being set out on stage to make sure that everything is as it should be for our athletes. There's also the pull start safety line on a weighted block out there, so that the safety line can be pulled and thrown away from the saw, so nothing can get tangled into any of the moving or rotational parts. So many things play a role here. Our safety shields are out there. Our crew is ready to step up to it. So now it's just about our athletes coming out, getting their saw started, and getting a clean set of cuts. 3 discs need to be dropped onto the deck. Clean, complete discs. No partially cut out discs are allowed. So many things play a role here. These guys, the main thing that they want to do is get 3 clean cuts and not get a DQ. And for Danny Marr and Robert Ebner, this is going to play an absolute crucial role because they are currently atop the leaderboard with 63 and 60 points respectively.
Und dann kommen die großen zwei, die sich mit sehr hoher Wahrscheinlichkeit heute hier das ausmachen müssen, wer als deutscher Meister nach Hause geht, nämlich Robert Ebner in Heat 5
right, so
oder
let's see who will go home as the German champion today. Will it be Danny Marr as a repeat champion, or will Robert Ebner be able to take over the championship again? Before that, though, we have a few other guys to jump into position first. Matthias Thoma will be the first to take on the hot saw. As the tension mounts, personal best for Matthias Thoma is 7.95 seconds. Again, on stage, using cleated shoes for the best possible grip on this wooden floor. 4th place at the National Championships in 2006. This is a comeback year for him, as he takes a quick inspection of the saw. He will have an opportunity to start the saw and warm it up before the actual competition run. And then you'll get to hear what it is these saws actually sound like when running. 30 kilograms of performance cutting machine. This is absolutely dangerous. There's no two ways about it. If anything untoward happens, there could be an injury. This is one of the reasons why so many safety precautions are taken. Eyewear, leg wear, everything around the saw itself is protected as far as audience and staff are concerned. Okay, here we go. Looking for a good time here from Matthias Thoma. His personal best, 7.61.
Athlete, ready. Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go.
Bit of an unsteady start for Matthias Thoma. 9.73. So that puts him currently in third place. And because he is the first athlete to cut in the hot saw, and it looks like he's got 3 complete discs, although 1 disc did drop. We got the thumbs up from Bart Janssen, so 1 disc did break apart when it dropped, but that's okay. The disc was complete as it was cut. And so that means Matthias Thoma will hold on to the hot seat for the moment until the next fastest time comes. As we look back there, that first disc that broke as he dropped it, Matthias Thoma with a 9.70. And that puts him in third place in the overall standings for now, with 18 points coming from this one and 53 overall. And as you can see, a flurry of activity again on stage with the stage crew making sure that the block that will be cut is straight and even, and making sure all that sawdust and everything else is out of the way so as to not have any slippery aspects for the station of the athlete when they're in place and cutting with that powerful hot saw. Once again, looking back at that last cut from Matthias Thoma, very, very close to that line, but he didn't cut over. And you can see that drop. That's where the block actually split apart on that last cut. But it was still a good cut, so it was legal, so that time will count. Now, I've just been informed that it appears as though the hot seat will not be positioned on our stage, which means that we'll just have to keep you up to date on who's in the lead and who is lagging behind. Next up, Stefan Stark. Third place in the national championships in 2010, 11, and 12. And he is the German record holder for stock saw with a 9.91 second. So the motor saw is his thing. He's going to have an absolutely fantastic time to beat Dirk Brown's time of 5.20, though. Key here is to make sure you don't overheat the saw before you have to actually do your competition run. And this is something that Dirk mentioned earlier. These are not cooled saws. They are basically air-cooled motors. And as there is no air flowing over the saw, it is something that, you just have to be aware of, that you can't overheat that saw before your competition run. Otherwise, it will not start properly. It will stall out. It's just, like I said, such a finicky machine. All right, here we go. Stefan Stark.
Athlete, ready, Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
9.09. He's got the fastest time in hot saw now. That means he moves into first place in the hot saw standings and third place in the overall. Just waiting for a quick check on the blocks. We've got a thumbs up from Bart Janssen, so everything looks good. And again, noticing big heavy saw, lots of activity inside the machine and outside with that blade. And that's a pretty thick first cut, but Stefan Stark managed to get through there very nicely in a respectable time. And you can see there's just a split inside the log that continues to break, but the cookies are dropping evenly, so everything is fair so far. That last upstroke cut from Stefan Stark. Sehr good, very good. Just jumped into German there for a brief moment. Good placement of his blade as well, so 9.03. I think we're going to see some improvements on these times, though, as our day goes by. In the overall standings, Danny Marr, Robert Abner still on top. Stefan Stark moves into third place with his 18 points now, pushing Matthias Thoma down into fourth place. Second fastest time, getting 15 points. And now, Nils Müller out on stage. Personal best 6.93. And you'll notice that he has a little bit of a different looking saw. You can see that blade is a little bit more belly on it in the middle. And from up here, you can see the teeth on that saw are just aggressive. Written on the side of the saw there, go baby go. And this is a go saw. Different sound as well. And also from Niels, a different way to check the saw. He obviously has an intimate relationship, knows this saw inside out, doesn't have to overdo it with the rev, and to know that the saw is exactly at the temperature he needs it to be at. Oh, I'm excited to see this saw work the block.
30 seconds.
All right, Nils Müller, last preparations. Puts on the safety clip for the pull start. Here we go.
Athlete, ready?
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Whoa, he had to restart that one because he was very, very close to the line. That cost him some time. 10:28. He's third place in the hot saw, and he knows it's a disappointing move on his part. Was he, in fact, over the line or not is the big question, and he decided to pull back up and restart the saw. And the judges are taking a very close look at it right now. It could be that he has a DQ. Yes, it does in fact look like he's gone over the line. That means even with the restart and the recut, we're going to have a DQ with a flag down. Oh, yeah, right there. You could see cuts over the line, and even with the restart, that is entirely disappointing for Nils Müller. So he has a DQ even with the 10 seconds he would have been in third place. but no points for him on this one. And that is really, really upsetting and too bad. And that is the nature of the beast here. And you can see there that angle that he starts the first cut. He had a bit of an angle in there, knew that he came really tight into the line, and the reset right here was way too big. And then he realized he went over the line, comes back up, resets. And then that third cut was actually not bad, but unfortunately he had already cut over the line, which means a disqualification for Niels Müller. So even though they have not gone for their hot saw as of yet, Robert Müller and Danny Marr are in positions 2 and 1, respectively, in the overall. Danny Marr currently top of the leaderboard in the overall with 63 points. Robert Ebner with 60 points in second place. Interesting situation here, though, because if Robert Ebner has a fast hot saw and Danny Marr manages to get in second place, they should be tied in the overall with their points, which means that it will come down to times in the earlier rounds. And then we'll have to see who will, in fact, take the overall. But that is still yet to be seen because we still have 3 athletes to cut. And that is Lars Seibert, Robert Ebner, and Danny Marr. The 3 guys that battled in the championship last year. And as we do a comparison here, Matthias Thoma, Stefan Stark, a couple of good cuts there. Stefan Stark, you could see his last cut was enough away from the line so that he wasn't actually in any drama for cutting over the line. Matthias was also very, very close to the line. Those guys had the fastest times, the top 2 spots so far in the hot saw. And you can see the differences between them in that head-to-head comparison. So next saw on deck right now, we can see another very, very interesting looking saw. This is a bit of a sexy one from Lars Seibert. And again, the color scheme matches up. Look good, perform well. And I guess that is the motto of Lars Seibert as he comes out on stage. That is a sexy looking saw right there. Look at that beast. Second place national championship last year. Also a member of the German national team. So we'll be there competing with the team at the Team World Championship. And look at that saw. That is just a beauty. All the green accents.
Your saw.
Very personalized. You can see the different carbon fiber parts to make sure that saw stays as light as possible. Oh, this is not a good sign right there when that happens. That is a tough thing. He's got a chance to warm up. Here we go. Oh, listen to that thing. That is a beast.
30 seconds.
That is a Formula One race saw right there, folks. An absolute monster. I was excited about the previous one. I'm even more excited about this one. The way that sounds, the way that kicks. Oh, Lars Seibert up next in the hot saw, and it is a hot saw.
Athlete ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Whoa! Oh, 7:03, the best time so far. A quick check, and he feels good about those discs, and I think they're good. That first one is a very, very thin cut, thin to win. Thumbs up from Bart Janssen. That's a good set of cuts, and Lars Seibert with a fantastic time of 7:03 today is top of the hot saw rankings so far. That is just a beast, a fantastic saw and a fantastic set of cuts for Lars. As we look back here, that first cut was very, very thin. Second cut on the upstroke was good, and the downstroke was a thick one, but he was still solid. Another angle right here. Watch how thin he comes in on this first cut. Wow. Bit of an angle there. That means he had to find a bit of space at the bottom. There wasn't a lot, but he finds a thin spot at the bottom. A nice, even, straight cut on the way up, which left him a lot of space for that last cut. Paused just a little bit on the downstroke, but boy, oh boy, he was good. Nice. So, Lars Seibert, 7:14. That is the time to beat right now for Danny Marr and Robert Ebner. Lars Seibert, at the moment, leads with 67 points. So, in the event, in the unlikely event, but in the event that Danny Marr and Robert Ebner both disqualify for whatever reason, then Lars Seibert will be your German national champion. But I don't want to jinx anybody here. We've got another beast saw on stage for Robert Ebner. And Robert Ebner now comes on stage, our second to last competitor in hot saw. His personal best, 5:23. Only 0.03 of a second off of the world record held by Dirk Brown. Will he be able to take that a little bit away from Dirk Brown? I don't know. Let's see today. As I said, the tension is mounting as we get ready for the run in hot saw from Robert Ebner.
Warm up your saw.
And again, it seems like these particular saws are a bit more finicky than others, and making sure that we get a good clean start. That is a monster as well. That's like a performance Harley Davidson on stage. Oh boy. So 30 seconds to get everything back in order and ready to go for this heat for Robert Ebner. Needs to stay calm and collected here as he sets his pull start and his safety line. Oh, and I love that smell. So he's got to give it all here in order to take a top time down.
Athlete ready.
Stand to your timber.
All right, here we go. Robert Ebner, hot saw.
2, 1, go.
Oh, no. We have a false start here. He's got to re-wrap now. The time will run. He has to get that saw going. He has to stay calm and get a clean cut here. There we go. Saw's running now. Oh, man. That is a bummer for Robert Ebner. 21.74 in the hot saw. And I do believe he's gone over the line at the bottom, but we'll have to have a quick check. Bart Janssen calls over Jörg Kutzenberger so they can check at the bottom to see if they've actually got a cut line. And it looks like we are okay for the lines, but an unfortunate start for Robert Ebner here. And that 21.60 puts him in 4th place in the hot saw. And that is not going to bode well for his hopes of a national championship title here. And there we see Lars Seibert in that position as your current leader with Lars Seibert 67 points. Robert Ebner, 69 points even with that slow time in 4th place. So now it's up to Danny Marr. Wow, that was unexpected. 69 points for Robert Ebner, even with the 9 points he gets for being in 4th place. Lars Seibert in 2nd place now in the overall standings, with just Danny Marr left to cut. And if Danny Marr gets a 10 or 11 second cut, he'll still have enough points to win the overall title once again. All right, Danny Marr, our last competitor of the day. This is it. This is the end-all, be-all. If Danny Marr can get 3 good cookies here and around 10 seconds, which is absolutely manageable, then he will be a repeat national champion and represent Germany at the individual world championship in November. Robert Ebner keeping a close eye on what's happening with Danny Marr from the position, we'll call it the hot stand. The hot seat, hot stand at the hot saw. Danny Marr, hands on the wood, ready to go.
Athlete, ready.
Stand to your timber. 3, 2, 1, go!
Oh, looks like 3 good cuts there. He took his time with a 5.98. That's also a very good time, and that means if everything is in order with the lines, Danny Marr will repeat as German national champion. He knew it. He just had to get 3 good solid cuts, and he is there. That means 81 points for Danny Marr with the fastest time in the hot saw. He will also take home the title of German national champion. And that is back-to-back wins for Danny Marr. Fantastic job. He didn't have to panic. He was nice and steady with the cuts. Still had a good time of 5.86. The fastest time by 1.28 seconds. A great job by Danny Marr. And he repeats as German national champion and will go on to represent Germany at the individual world championship. And right now, he is just waiting on Marcus, who will hand him a microphone and will get a few words from Danny Marr, who has just won back-to-back German titles.
Danny, alter und neuer deutscher Meister. Wie fühlt sich das an?
Fühlt sich richtig geil an, mehr kann ich nicht mehr sagen. Ja, was soll ich sagen? War jetzt sehr aufgeregt an der Hotsaw, aber ich habe einen sicheren Schnitt gemacht, war sehr, sehr aufgeregt, sonst nie an der Hotsaw aufgeregt.
Yeah, so it feels great. What should I say? I was a little bit stressed out with the hot saw. I'm never stressed out with the hot saw, but got the title again, so I held myself. And he wants to thank all the people that are watching out in the audience there, and his fans, of course, and his family at home, and his kids.
Einfach nur glücklich.
Ich finde es toll, dass du einen sicheren Schnitt nennst. Die Zeit war mehr als hervorragend und das in dieser Situation. Also da hast du auch bewiesen, dass du es drauf hast und dass du hier richtig Lust gehabt hast. Und ich glaube, das war für alle Athleten trotz der speziellen Situation ein ganz toller Wettkampf, oder?
So it was even with the special situation a good competition.
Dirk Braune, ein großer und einer meiner besten Freunde hat mich vorher in die Mangel genommen, quasi was zu tun ist.
Yeah, it was a great competition. Dirk Brown, one of my best friends, and he helped me out a lot with this situation.
Und ging auf. Bin glücklich.
And he's happy because it went the way he wanted to.
2-2-2 für die Weltmeisterschaft.
Ja, danke schön.
And a big congratulations for the World Championship, and a big thank you from Danny Marr. Great job out there. Thank you, Marcus, and congratulations to Danny Marr, your former and repeat German national champion. He will represent Germany at the World Championship in November. So, final look at the slow-mo here, and he really did target everything just perfectly. He didn't rush it. He had 3 good cookies, 3 on the floor, as they say. And all he needed to do was get it inside of 10 seconds, and he was good to go. But he did it in 5.86 seconds. Robert Ebner, unfortunately, he had a rough start or non-start to his saw, which meant that he had to restart it, and his cut was 21.60 seconds. But for Danny Marr, it's a big deal. He is the repeat German champion. And there you see with the overall standings, and you can imagine if Robert Ebner had had a real proper cut, we might have been talking about a different situation here with the overall standings. As it stands, though, Danny Marr is your 2020 STIHL Timbersports German champion. So looking at the overall standings once again, Danny Marr on top, and you could see the underhand, the stock saw, the standing block chop, the springboard, and the single buck, and the hot saw points there for all of our athletes. Danny Marr, 81 points. Robert Ebner in second place with 66 points. Lars Seibert in there as well with 64 points. So Lars Seibert and Danny Marr just, Lars Seibert and Robert Ebner just switching their positions from last year. This time Robert Ebner taking second place and Lars Seibert taking third place as we set up our stage for the awards ceremony here, and we will bring out our top 3 athletes.
Also ich war nicht wirklich entspannt, muss ich sagen. Also ich hatte ziemlich starkes Herzklopfen, als Danny an den Schnitt ranging, weil ich jetzt auch wusste, was dranhängt, wie nervös man auch dann davor ist. Und weil erst wenn du da stehst, realisierst du wirklich, was jetzt da gerade vor dir passiert. Du weißt jetzt, du hast einen deutschen Meistertitel in der Hand, du kannst alles selber in die Hand nehmen, du musst nur gut schneiden und viele machen da einen Fehler und da musst du im Kopf schon sehr stark sein, was Danny ist. Und er hat bewiesen, dass er jetzt auch verdienter deutscher Meister ist, und auch wenn Robert seine Säge nicht angegangen ist, trotz alledem glaube ich, dass mit dem Schnitt Danny trotzdem gewonnen hätte. Roberts Schnitt selber an sich im Holz war sehr schnell, hat man hinterher gesehen. Er hat natürlich auch volles Risiko gegangen dann eben bei dem Schnitt, weil er eben nichts hat zu verlieren. Er wusste, die Zeit ist eh kaputt. Also zeige ich mal, was meine Säge kann. Und beim Danny sieht man jetzt
looking back one more time at the cuts from Danny Marr. He just took his time with it, had 3 clean cuts, and still had quite a fast time there. Didn't go over the line. Solid cuts from Danny Marr, and that earned him the title.
Und er schneidet eigentlich immer sicher. Ich habe Danny noch nie gesehen, das habe ich ihm auch gesagt. Danny, Hotsaw ist dein Ding. Du brauchst dir keinen Gucken machen. Ich habe dich noch nie gesehen, dass du einen DQ gemacht hast oder so. Er hat eigentlich immer sicher geschnitten und auch technisch sehr sauber geschnitten. Das war nicht gewackelt oder sonst irgendwas, sondern immer alles sauber reingebracht. Und das zeichnet Danny an der Hotsaw aus. Also Danny ist an der Hotsaw eine Bank, und ich bin auch der Meinung, wenn er demnächst eine vernünftige Kette hat, dann wird er auch einen Weltrekord angreifen können. Ich glaube, aber trotz alledem, was Robert vom Schnitt her selber, was das Holz betrifft, im Schnitt, war die Säge schon nicht schlecht. Also ich glaube, es hätte geklappt bei ihm auch.
Also die Konstanz, muss man sagen, von Danny Marr heute wirklich beeindruckend, ja. Und ein wohlverdienter neuer alter deutscher Meister.
Hat es verdient, ist genauso gelaufen. Wer hat Underhand, hat er gewonnen. Es war aber immer knappe Entscheidung. Der Robert war knapp dahinter. war immer knapp dahinter, auch bei Singlebutt war Robert knapp dahinter. Das ist eine ganz minimale Entscheidung, da geht es um Zehntel nur und es hätte auch andersrum ausgehen können, dann wäre es knapper geworden vielleicht und wieder ein bisschen mehr Druck auf den Danny. Also es ist jetzt für den Danny gut gelaufen, aber Robert war nah dran und es waren beide gleich gut, kann man fast sagen.
Hut ab vor allen Athleten, die hier an den Start gegangen sind und wir freuen uns jetzt auf die Siegerehrung.
All right. Award ceremony time, and as I mentioned earlier, positions for third and second just switched from the two guys that were in those same positions last year. This time, Lars Seibert takes third place in the overall standings. And a personal Laola, big congratulations to him as he receives the award for third place.
Hat seine Leistung im letzten Jahr bestätigt und mit dem Background, den zu Hause auch hatte, mit der vielen Arbeit, alles drum und dran.
So congratulations to Lars Seibert, third place here at the German National Championship 2020, the bronze medalist. Now,
man sieht ihm auch an, er ist auch gerührt und sehr stolz darauf, was er geleistet hat und kann er auch, wie gesagt, hervorragende Leistung. Und
last year their roles were reversed, but this year Robert Ebner will take over the silver medal position in second place. Robert Ebner.
Beim sympathischen Robert Ebner, 66 Punkte hat er geholt. Und trotzdem wir hier
Lars Seibert with 64 points, just 2 points ahead of him is Robert Ebner in second place.
Und die Athleten freuen sich und zu Recht lässt er sich hier ein bisschen feiern von den wenigen anwesenden Silbermedaille. Ganz tolle Sache. Ne?
Ja, ich denke, dass Robert schon ein bisschen enttäuscht ist. Er wollte einen deutschen Meistertitel zurückholen, er wollte zeigen, dass er der Beste ist. Er ist trotzdem zufrieden und ja, er kann es eh nicht mehr ändern, es ist jetzt passiert. Es gibt ein neues Jahr, nächstes Jahr geht es weiter, dann hoffentlich mit Zuschauern, die ihn vielleicht wieder ein bisschen mehr motivieren, um dann auch alles abzurufen. Ich denke, er hat in der Hotzo den kleinen Fehler gemacht, dass er die Hotzo hat nicht richtig frei gemacht, dass sie deswegen nicht gekommen ist.
Okay, and now
wissen, weil ich kenne den Hotzo-Typ nicht so gut.
We look back down our tunnel to where
the
defending German national champion is waiting.
Spannende Duelle für die Zukunft auch erhoffen.
He repeats the title 2 years in a row now. 2019 and again in 2020.
Ja, es war einfach eng, es ging um Hundertstel, in der Singleback um Hundertstel, im anderen um Hundertstel.
And a well-earned and well-deserved first place and the gold medal at the STIHL Timbersports German Championship goes to Danny Marr. 81 points, a solid win for Danny.
Danny Marr, neuer und eigener deutscher Meister. Ja, da ist auch ein bisschen Gänsehaut-Feeling sehr wohl hier überall im Studio zu spüren. Und jetzt lässt das frei, der war so fokussiert vorher und jetzt spürt man diese Freude, diese Anspannung, die von ihm gefallen ist. Ich glaube auch im Interview hat man es ganz klar gesehen.
Also wir haben vorgestern noch telefoniert und
so there you see
ganz kurz gesprochen und
our top 3 athletes here at the 2020 German National Championships for the STIHL Timbersports. And under these strange circumstances, they just put on a fantastic show, fantastic competition without any audience here and using the whole social distancing, air high fives all around for the guys that are on stage. A great job, and Danny Marr takes the win home with a fantastic win in 81 points. Good job there.
Von Danny Marr aus dieser deutschen Meisterschaft 2020 hier im Studio 6 in München in den Bavaria Studios. Hat auf jeden Fall riesen Spaß gemacht, die Athleten mal wieder im Einsatz zu sehen und vor allem dein Fachkommentar dazu zu hören. Das Beste ist ja vielen entgangen, also dein Mitleben und Mitfiebern, während die Athleten im Einsatz waren.
All right, and we get a chance here in a second. We're going to take a look at some of the highlights from these gentlemen. They put on a great show, as I said, but this last set of cuts from Danny Marr with his hot saw. Safe, solid, well cut, 3 discs on the ground, and he can be proud of repeating as the German national champion here at Studio 6 at the Bavaria Film Studios in Munich, Germany. A great job, and congratulations to our top 3 guys. And there, the celebration by Danny Marr, the fireman, at the end of his hot saw run. Fantastic. Great job.
Knacken würde, oder?
Nein, das ist so wie bei mir. Ich habe alle Rekorde angegriffen, weil ich die brechen wollte. Und die Rekorde sind zum Brechen da. Und es wird immer irgendwann einen besseren geben. Natürlich geht die Technik auch weiter. Das Werkzeug wird besser vielleicht, alles drum und dran. Also, und die Athleten werden vielleicht auch noch fitter. Das weiß man nicht, aber jetzt, man sieht es immer, die Rekorde sind dafür da, um gebrochen zu werden. Und das sind die Ziele, einfach, die man sich als Sportler auch setzen muss. Mein Ziel war immer, die Rekorde nach vorne zu schieben, was ich wirklich schon einige Male gemacht habe in jeder Disziplin. Und das war mein Ziel. Und wenn man ein Ziel hat, dann weiß man auch den Weg irgendwann.
Ein sehr schönes Schlusswort. Wir dürfen uns an dieser Stelle ganz
STIHL Timbersports German Championship 2020 is done and dusted, even under these strange circumstances and trying to be safe with COVID-19 floating around and the social distancing that we had to practice here, not allowing any audience into the arena for the competition today. These guys delivered. It was exciting. There were lots of great head-to-head battles, whether it be from the underhand chop, stock saw, standing block chop, single buck, or the springboard, or finally the individual hot saw runs that we saw at the end. It was a good battle for all of these guys. And once again, Danny Marr came out on top. And as I said, he will represent Germany at the international version of the STIHL Timbersports at the World Championships in November. We hope to see you all there. And at this point, we're still going to be doing that under the social distancing rules. We hope you guys enjoyed the show today. Let's take a look at some of the highlights from So some great highlights from this 2020 German Championship. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. And yeah, looking forward to the next time we can see and hear each other in person. Until then, enjoy, everybody. Take care. Be safe out there. Till next time, this has been the STIHL Timbersports German Championships 2020. Ciao, everyone.